We are doing it today, family. My Immortal. The infamous Immortal piece of fan fiction, which is, I believe, one of the greatest pieces of art of all time. Undoubtedly. There is no higher art form than the unironically terrible piece of fan fiction. I do want to say there is a place very deep in my heart for fan fiction, especially well-made fan fiction. Well-made fan fiction is a tribute to all things great about a piece of work that just resonates with someone so much that they don't want to create something, they don't have that seed of, I want to create something 100% reflective of me. Like, I don't want to invent something new. I don't want to reinvent the wheel, because this work so deeply resonated with me that it's perfect. Harry Potter resonated with me so deeply that I don't even want to create my own wizarding world. I want to relive the experiences I had in that one. I'm going to write a tribute to it. I think that is what makes fan fiction beautiful and transcendent. And it is also, hilariously, what can make it very, very bad. Especially when it shows a complete lack of understanding for what makes the original work so great. Now, in a work like Harry Potter or Game of Thrones, we have complicated moving parts of characters, of settings, of wars and plot lines. Everything is intricately connected to make this work well, to make this piece of art work well at what it does. In the case of Game of Thrones, we have intricately moving characters, and their plot lines interconnect, and there's deeply motivated concerns for money and power and status, sexual desire, and sometimes just people making rash decisions, which completely makes sense. And if we were to write something like a fan fiction, I think I just realized that rock music may have been a little intense there. Hopefully that's been toned down quite a bit. If we were to look at what makes something like Game of Thrones work well, and we were going to try to make a fan fiction from it, we'd want to make sure that our fan fiction is appropriately honoring the best qualities of George R.R. Martin's work. And when we make fan fictions, when we try to honor those works, when we skip over that, if we were to do a Game of Thrones fan fiction because we just loved Ned Stark so much in the first book, and we just really, really wanted to extend his amazing characterization into an alternate plotline or maybe some kind of prequel, we would be looking at doing something that would show our ability to understand what makes Ned Stark work as a character, what makes him interesting, what makes him tick, what makes his role in Game of Thrones unique. However, perhaps our motivation is less artistic. Perhaps our motivation is just because we thought Ned Stark was sexy as fuck. If that's our motivation going into writing a fan fiction, we're probably going to miss the point. And we're going to miss it hilariously. And that is precisely what happens with My Immortal. in that sense, what's amazing about it is not only that it takes that quality, that aspirational quality of, oh my God, these characters were just so sexy. I just couldn't stand it. I just had to do something with these sexy, sexy characters. But to do it poorly at the same time, and to do it so phenomenally poorly that we don't even keep our own storytelling consistent. We don't keep its motivations internally congruent. It shows such an utter lack of awareness for the art of storytelling at large that it's genuinely appalling. It's genuinely remarkable. So, that is what we will be doing today. We will be looking at what makes it so terrible, and we will be having a good time with it. At some point, I'm going to pause, and I will invite you as well to similarly pause so that both of us, all of us, can get a drink and enjoy the last 10 chapters. It's a little early to drink where I am right now. I'm not quite a day drinker. I try not to be, at least. Generally, I think it's... Maybe there's like nothing inherently wrong with it, but it just feels weird, you know? You grow up a certain way and you're like, there's like a time at which it's appropriate to start. Unfortunately, that time is not yet upon us. But it will be soon, family. It will be. I'm going to, let's see, we need to get the display showing. Let's add a new source. This display capture 2. There we go. And hopefully, it really, okay, you know what? We're just gonna switch the displays. Sure, why not? That's what we'll do. Are you gonna, nope. We tried, family. Okay. No, delete this guy. Yeah. Okay, and we'll switch this guy over here and put My Immortal over here. And then transition. We are good to go. Let someone know you love them today. That's what Pretzel tells me at the moment. I think it's good advice. You never know when you can't tell somebody you love them. We should all reach out to Bloody Tears 666. Okay. Now, I have been trying to perfect for the better part of a couple of days now, just a couple, my ability to read this in various voices that hopefully will be somewhat amusing. And the more that we descend into the dark depths of what the night has for us, the more fun we will have with it. Indeed. Now, I think some of this... Oh, you know what? I should have put one of those like mature content warnings or something up. I don't think I can do that like midstream, but you know what? We'll roll with it. I don't think they actually functionally do too much for us, but maybe I'll put like I don't know. Put it in the stream title, I guess. What do other people do when they run into this problem? They don't run into it. They're smarter than that. That's fine. Okay, friends. We will be... Let me double check that we are... Yep, we are. You're good to go. I am very excited for this. It was first mentioned that we should do this on stream by, I believe it was Mez, who advised it. Or perhaps it was suggested by Vision Shot. Shout out to either of them, both of them, whoever will be most amused by the fact that we are at present going to be looking at it. Actually, that's me. I am the one who is most amused. So I looked into it, and I've only read the first couple of chapters. Granted, I've read them repeatedly now, because they are really transcendent pieces of art. In fact, there are 44 chapters of the entire work. We'll only be looking at the first 22 today. We'll be doing all 44 in due time. In due time. But today, only the first 22. And I think that that is a good goal for us. The chapters aren't very long, which gives us a lot to work with, and we'll have a lot of fun with it. What's amazing about it is that we have these author's notes, and each note gives us just a little glimpse into the psychology of the person who would author this material. Each note gives us a moment to spend with an author where we might have that question. We might, when were we reading any other work, we would think to ourselves, what motivated you to write this? What caused this to occur to you? Why did you think this was a good idea? And normally you don't get any kind of resolution with that. You don't get to know what makes something a good idea for this author, because the only evidence before you are the words in the story itself. But here, we are given very, very substantive answers. We are given glimpses into the soul of this person, more so than the story offers us on its own, because the author has given us author's notes. And those are always useful for parsing out meaning from stories, or from understanding what motivates the underlying mechanisms, or the machinations of storytelling, the characterization, the setting, all of it. We lift the curtain, we peer behind the machine. This author is very generous to us, and I think we have a lot to thank for, a lot to be thankful for. Without further ado, My Immortal by oh no, crap. Where was it? It was who authored this? I want to make sure we give proper credit. I believe it is written by, where are we? Tara Gillespie, potentially. Will also be at some point. I'm very interested to see I'm a Wizard. Somebody, when I originally read this, I thought it was I'm a Wizard, but that is I'm a Wizard, which, yeah, I don't see her username. It was quite a username. But that's fine. We will do without it. Tara Gillespie, if that's a real person, is the author of this wonderful story. We will take it one chapter at a time. We will enjoy it, friends. And let's pull this up. Here we go. Special thanks. Get it? Because I'm gothic. To my GF, ew, not in that way, Raven, Bloody Tears 666, for helping me with the story and spelling. You rock. Justin, you're the love of my depersing life. You rock too. MCR rocks. At various points, I may interject just to give some clarification for our non-emo audience members out there who may wonder, what is MCR? That is My Chemical Romance. And worry not, it required a Google search from me as well. And if you are judging me for having to Google search that, well, my childhood was not what many would call a depersing life. Oh, this music is a little too uplifting. I don't know if you can hear it that well. The audio levels are sort of ambiguous to me. It's supposed to be hard rock. Do they have just like... Is there like emo rock? Is that a thing I can select here? What would be the closest to emo rock? I guess I could do hype. Sounds upbeat. Epic. Epic. You know what? This is epic music. This deserves to be known as epic. With any luck, hopefully this is epic enough for this story. Hi. My name is Ebony Darkness Dementia Ravenway, and I have long ebony black hair. That's how I got my name. With purple streaks and red tips that reaches my mid-back, and icy blue eyes like limpid tears. And a lot of people tell me I look like Amy Lee. Author's note. If you don't know who she is, get the hell out of here. I'm not related to Gerard Way, but I wish I was, because he's a major fucking hottie. I'm a vampire, but my teeth are straight and white. I have pale white skin. I'm also a witch, and I go to a magic school called Hogwarts in England, where I'm in the 7th year. I'm 17. I'm a goth, in case you couldn't tell. And I wear mostly black. I love Hot Topic, and I buy all my clothes from there. For example, today I was wearing a black corset with black matching lace around it, and a black leather miniskirt, pink fishnets, and black combat boots. I was wearing black lipstick, white foundation, black eyeliner, and red eyeshadow. I was walking outside Hogwarts. It was snowing and raining, so there was no sun, which I was very happy about. A lot of preps stared at me. I put up my middle finger at them. It was snowing and raining, just to really drive that home. Snowing and raining. I don't know quite what that looks like. I've never seen it snow and rain at the same time. I imagine usually these sorts of things, these sorts of forces of nature counteract each other. But we are in the world of Hogwarts and magic, so anything's possible, right? "Hey, Ebony," shouted a voice. I looked up. It was Draco Malfoy. "What's up, Draco?" I asked. "Nothing," he said, shyly. But then I heard my friends call me, and I had to go away. And thus ends chapter 1. Is it good? Please tell me, Fangs. It's amazing. That is what I would have answered her in 2006, I believe that this was initially published. It is truly amazing. The way that we end on this cliffhanger. But then I heard my friends call me and I had to go away. What's going to happen next? Where does she go from there? Her friends call her and she has to go away. The edge of my seat. And the only way to know is to keep reading. Indeed, we will. Now, I will say, somebody could criticize this. There's a point of criticism to be made. She shops at Hot Topic and yet only wears black. They sell more than black clothes. If you've never been to Hot Topic, they sell hot pink. I mean, I think that's where half their name comes from. So, like, the fact that she's wearing pretty much only black, it's just such a missed opportunity. I mean, we really have a chance to open our world up to some color here. Give our readers something really to picture in their minds. But we're just left with all black. I just think we could have done more. But it's a light criticism. It's a very light criticism. Honestly, if I was editing this, the rest of it's fine. The rest of it's perfect. Chapter 2. Thanks to Bloody Tears 666 for helping me with the chapter. BTW prep, stop flaming my story, okay? The next day, I woke up in my bedroom. It was snowing and raining again. This is a very common weather pattern for this location, it seems. If you've been to England, which is where I believe Hogwarts is located, I've never seen it snow and rain there. I'm getting a little hung up on this because it seems to be a common weather pattern. And unless we have wizards manipulating the weather actively, and that's a point of exposition you're going to want to illustrate, friends. If you're writing in your story and you have these very bizarre weather patterns, you probably want to illustrate to your audience how those are occurring. Now, of course, we don't usually want to just throw exposition at the reader, but in this case, I think maybe some exposition was warranted. I opened the door of my coffin and drank some blood from a bottle I had. Didn't need to say I had. Could just say, obviously you have it. So I opened the door of my coffin and drank some blood from a bottle. That would have been better. Now, of course, we might wonder who is bottling this blood. What vampire corporation is bottling blood for people? But of course, if vampires are common enough in this world of wizards, only naturally would we be selling blood in bottles. That's how it would go. That makes sense. This is actually deep world building right here. And drank some blood from a bottle. My coffin was black ebony, and inside it was hot pink velvet. There we go. We finally got some color variation. Not just black, not just red. Now we've got hot pink velvet for the coffin, which is usually probably going to be closed. It was black ebony, and inside it was hot pink velvet with black lace on the ends. On the ends? The ends of the coffin? She clearly has more intimate knowledge of coffin architecture than I do. I don't know what the end of the... Yeah. I mean, it would require intimate knowledge with what coffins, like their shapes are, how they're built. This is an example of solid research going into your story, solid consideration. I got out of my coffin and took off my giant MCR t-shirt, which I used for pajamas. Instead, I put on a black leather dress, a pentagram necklace, combat boots, and black fishnets on. I put on 4 pairs of earrings in my pierced ears and put my hair in a kind of messy bun. Now, we could criticize here some of the spelling and grammar errors. Obviously, of course, it was edited by her friend Raven, Bloody Tears 666, and it seems like there are some little things that probably got skimmed over in the proofread, but honestly, I mean, we're not gonna get too hung up on those because we're not preps. We're not going to be flaming this like those preps do. We're going to be treating this academically, responsibly, like with the amount of credit that a work of this quality deserves. I put on 4 pairs of earrings in my pierced ears, of course, because it wouldn't make sense to put on 4 pairs of earrings in your not pierced ears. We want to be telling our readers this, that it is pierced ears we are putting the earrings into. Of course. I put on 4 pairs of earrings in my pierced ears and put my hair in a kind of messy bun. My friend, Willow, Raven, this is you, woke up then and grinned at me. She flipped her long waist-length raven black hair with pink streaks and opened her forest green eyes. More color variation. I'm loving it. This is going from, and this is certainly an artistic choice. I mean, we started off with a very bleak black world, right? I mean, we can read into this. It started off black. It's a depersing world, and everything is black. We've got the black lace, we've got the black combat boots, the black leather miniskirt, everything from Hot Topic, which is black. She's got the black coffin. She's got black hair. Everything is black, and it's dark and depressing. But the moment that her friend comes into the story, the moment that her friend focuses into view, her friend has all of this color. Forest green eyes. Pink streaks in her hair. This is the author showing us The emotional depth that comes from her friend joining her in this world. Before this, she didn't see her friend. Before this, she was alone and she was depressed. Of course, she ran into Draco Malfoy and then her friends called her and she had to go away. But I mean, this is the moment that we see the true light and color that her friend brings into her world. She put on her Marilyn Manson t-shirt. This is already a variation, right? Before we only had My Chemical Romance, now we've also got Marilyn Manson. This is the variety of taste that her friend brings. Her friend seems to be a Marilyn Manson friend, or a Marilyn Manson lover, or fan. That's the word, fan. So obviously, now we've got some characterization going on. We're distinguishing these two characters. This is fantastic. That's how we want to do it. We want to do this by, we can tell one of them, their favorite band is this. The other one, their favorite band is this. Obviously, they're different characters now. Even though they both have raven black hair, that's not as important as the fact that they are distinguished by the color of the streaks and their musical tastes. What t-shirts and band t-shirts they wear to bed. These are ways to characterize people without having to rely on silly things like what choices they would make differently in different settings. That kind of characterization is going to bore your reader to death, and you're going to have to set it up, and it's going to be a lot of work. You're going to have to explain how they ended up in this situation or that situation and what led them to make certain choices. You don't want to have to do that. That is painful. That's a lot of work. Instead, we could just sum up all characterization in just musical preferences, certain tastes they have. This is the way to do it. She put on her Marilyn Manson t-shirt with a black mini, fishnets, and pointy high-heeled boots. We put on our makeup, black lipstick, white foundation, and black eyeliner. OMFG, I saw you talking to Draco Malfoy yesterday, she said excitedly. Yeah, so? I said, blushing. Do you like Draco? She asked, as we went out of the Slytherin common room and into the Great Hall. No, I so fucking don't, I shouted. Yeah, right, she exclaimed. Just then, Draco walked up to me. Hi, he said. Hi, I replied, flirtily. Now this is a creative choice. The depth. How do you say hi, flirtily? That's unique. That requires some thought. That requires some thinking about, some looking at. How would you say hi? If you were trying to flirt with someone and you want to say hi to them, how do you do that in a flirtatious way? This character mastered it. She just said it flirtily. We can just tell our readers that. That's the way that she said it. And it makes sense. Because when we're flirting with people, we can use normal words like hi as ways of flirting with people, as ways of communicating deeper, intense emotional connections that we have with them. Guess what? He said. Notice this. This is a very subtle, conscious, creative choice. It creates a certain kind of tone for this conversation. The way that he said it is contained in the punctuation. It's not, guess what? It's, guess what? Remember, this is an emo character. He's a little bit depressed. He's gothic. So, of course, he's not going to be saying it with this kind of like upbeat, excited intonation. Instead, he's saying it, guess what? He's saying it like a fact. He's got something to tell her. He's telling her that up front. It's a fact. Guess what? What? I asked. Now, of course, she is excited because Draco, the love of her life, has just come up and started talking to her. She is going to have the question mark. She is going to be very excited about this. The emotion is contained. We've got very subtle emotional conveyance. Conveyance? Yeah, that's a word now. In just the punctuation alone. Well, good Charlotte are having a concert in Hogsmeade, he told me. Oh my fucking God, I screamed. I love GC. They are my favorite band besides MCR. 180 right there. Bam. What? We thought her favorite band was MCR. She sleeps in their t-shirts. No, her favorite band is Good Charlotte. This character still has things to reveal to us. There are still things we can learn about this character, about her preferences, her wants, her desires. It wasn't all revealed in the first chapter, and that's key. You want to make sure that you're slowly revealing these things so that the reader feels constantly like they get a better and better chance to get to know this character. Oh my fucking God, I screamed. I love GC. They are my favorite band besides MCR. Well, do you want to go with me? He asked. I gasped. Bam, we end the chapter on that gasp, right? It's just like a movie. You would end the scene, if you wanted to end this scene, you'd end the scene on this character gasping. That's the moment that leaves us on the edge, that leaves us wondering what's going to happen next. When we just see the characters, that reaction shot. And then what happens next? Right? It's like one of those horror movies. You see the scream and then you cut away from it immediately. Maybe there's a monster coming. Maybe they go to the Good Charlotte concert. Maybe they don't, though. Chapter 3. Stop blaming the story, preps, okay? Otherwise, thanks to Gothic people for the good reviews. Thanks again, Raven. Oh yeah, BTW, I don't own this or the lyrics for Good Charlotte. On the night of the concert, I put on my black lace-up boots with high heels. Underneath them were ripped red fishnets. Then I put on a black leather mini dress with all this corset stuff on the back and front. I put on matching fishnets on my arms. I straightened my hair and made it look all spiky. I felt a little depressed then, so I slit one of my wrists. Now this is where we get another insight into the depth of emotion felt by this character. While we went from she's readying, she's excited to go to this concert, she's also still... She's still got, other anxieties lingering. How does she resolve those anxieties? How does she deal with the fact that she's about to go to this concert with Draco Malfoy? She's in love with him. And what's the way that she resolves this anxiety, this depression? She slits her wrist. Now this is character flaw, right? This is a flaw for our character. This is how we avoid things like having a Mary Sue, or having a character who's just too powerful, too aware of things, or too perfect. She's not too perfect, guys. She slits her wrists. That's a character flaw. So, we're 3 chapters in. Not only have we been given a 180 on her preferences, it's not MCR, it's Good Charlotte. That's her favorite band. But we also now have a flaw exposed to us. She slits one of her wrists. I read a depressing book while I waited for it to stop bleeding, and I listened to some GC. I painted my nails black and put on tons of black eyeliner. Then I put on some black lipstick. I didn't put on foundation because I was pale anyway. She's a vampire, so this is evidence that the author has considered this deeply, intensely. Vampires would be pale, right? They don't have blood flow in their arms. Now, you could say, then why is she slitting her wrists? It doesn't say that she bled. So she could just be doing it to make cuts in her arms without bleeding. And that makes sense, right? We didn't see red, we didn't see blood. She talked none of the blood. And instead, she's pale. So she doesn't need to even put on foundation. This is an author who has thought about these things. They've really given careful consideration to how being a vampire would change parts of her daily routine. I drank some human blood right there. See? Of course she's going to drink human blood. That's something that a vampire needs. I drank some human blood, so I was ready to go to the concert. I went outside. Draco was waiting there in front of his flying car. He was wearing a Simple Plan t-shirt. They would play at the show too. Baggy black skater pants, black nail polish, and a little eyeliner. A lot for cool boys wear it, okay? It's the author's note. Whenever I do that voice, that's just so you can distinguish the author's intentions from the character's intentions, of course. Hi, Draco, I said in a depressed voice. Now, we've got this exclamation mark, but we are also saying it in a depressed voice. So we can imagine that this is something that the main character is very excited about. They're excited to see Draco, but they also have to keep outwardly their depressed demeanor. They don't want to make it seem like Draco's changing them too much. They don't want to reveal how much they really like this guy. That would be problematic. Hi, Draco, I said in a depressed voice. Hi, Ebony, he said back. We walked into his flying black Mercedes-Benz. The license plate said 666 and flew to the place of the concert. So, one thing that oftentimes if we have a car in a story, this is something that, you can imagine this in a film, right? You see the car, they get into the car and the car flies off, and you get that shot of the car flying off and you see the license plate. We don't have that ability here. We can't see the license plate of this car. This is a book. How do we resolve that? Simple. We tell them what the license plate says. Because the character just knows it. And this is useful information for the reader. We want to tell them this because it deepens our world building. On the way, we listened excitedly to Good Charlotte and Marilyn Manson. We both smoked cigarettes and drugs. Because, so you may be thinking, and this really just reveals probably, I think it's important for a lot of authors to really understand the different communities that they end up inadvertently writing about, or the different practices, right? So like nobody who uses drugs, who smokes drugs, refers to them by the individual names. That's ridiculous. They wouldn't do that. They're not smart enough to do that, right? Of course, because drugs makes people dumb. So the thing is, they're not going to say, oh, we smoked marijuana, or we smoked weed, or we smoked crack. They're not going to say any of those things. That would be unrealistic. People who use drugs just say, I use drugs. I smoke drugs. That's something that you can only intimately understand if you've had exposure to these kinds of things in our society. If you've had exposure to drugs, you know that people say, I smoke drugs. This is something that the author's either done very careful research, or she has personal knowledge of. She has personal, intimate understandings of drug communities, or what have you, where people talk about how they smoke drugs. We both smoked cigarettes and drugs. It's a common mistake that many authors, as they begin in their earlier works, they may make these kinds of mistakes that they say, oh, we smoked marijuana, we smoked crack. But nobody says that in the real world. If you're talking about it with your friend, and you just smoked some drugs yesterday, you tell them, oh yeah, yesterday I was smoking drugs before the concert. Nobody needs to specify which ones. Obviously, you were smoking the concert drugs. It's a pitfall that many people stumble into. And she navigated this perfectly. When we got there, we both hopped out of the car. We went to the mosh pit at the front of the stage and jumped up and down as we listened to Good Charlotte. You come in cold, you're covered in I've never heard Good Charlotte, just to be clear. So I don't know exactly what this sounds like, but I'm assuming it sounds like this. You come in cold, you're covered in blood. They're all so happy you've arrived. The doctor cuts your cord, hands you to your mom. She sets you free into this life, sang Joel. I don't own the lyrics to that song. Joel is so fucking hot, I said to Draco, pointing to him as he sung, filling the club with his amazing voice. It's good that we're told now that they're in a club. This is something that I was initially confused about, whether or not we were in a club, or maybe we were in some sort of outside arena or something. We're in a club. That's useful knowledge. This is good. Now we can hear it as the music is reverberating off of the walls, as we're really engaged by this band singing on the stage. It's a very limited environment. There's tons of people. We see the mosh pit at the front. All makes sense. Suddenly, Draco looked sad. Now, this is fantastic. The way that this is conveyed to us is he looked sad in response to something that she said. Now, she said, Joel is so fucking hot. And the audience is thinking, well, why would that make Draco sad? Of course, now it spurs them into dialogue, which is perfect. But it could have been told to us. It could have been told to us directly. I said something that made him sad. We didn't get that. Instead, we got a much more organic, natural development. She says something, and then he looks sad. It's perfect. What's wrong? I asked, as we moshed to the music. Then I caught on. Now, I've never been to a concert with a mosh pit. So I would never have even thought that you might use the word mosh as a verb, that we moshed to the music. But that's natural. It makes sense. What's wrong? I asked as we moshed to the music. Then I caught on. Hey, it's okay. I don't like him better than you, I said. Really? Asked Draco sensitively, and he put his arm around me, all protective. Really, I said. Besides, I don't even know Joel, and he's going out with Hilary fucking Duff. I fucking hate that little bitch, I said disgustedly, thinking of her ugly blonde face. The night went on really well, and I had a great time. So did Draco. After the concert, we drank some beer and asked Benji and Joel for their autographs and photos with them. We got GC concert tees. Draco and I crawled back to the Mercedes-Benz, but Draco didn't go back into Hogwarts. Instead, he drove the car into... the Forbidden Forest! You may think you only need one ellipsis or 3 periods, but you don't. You need as many as naturally builds tension before the next piece of your narrative. Sometimes that's 20 ellipses. Sometimes it's 40. As we'll see when we go on, sometimes it's closer to the upper bounds of 100 or where X approaches infinity. And that is where form and content align. The delivery of your story meets the way that your reader engages with it, the way that they read the story. The number of ellipses they see directly corresponds to the amount of time they actually perceive passing before the dramatic reveal. And in no way would they ever find it annoying. Don't take my word for it. Experience it yourself. Chapter 4. I said stop flaming, okay? Ebony's name is Enobi, not Mary Sue, okay? Draco is so in love with her that he is acting different. They knew each other before, okay? They knew each other before. Now, this is... I think we have to... Now, it sounds like this author was receiving some criticism. I imagine the criticism is something like, well, Draco Malfoy doesn't really seem like he's being himself around this person. It really seems like Draco Malfoy is being a different character now. And that's not the case. What's actually happened is that some time has elapsed between this story and the initial Harry Potter story that most readers are familiar with. And in that time elapsing, we have a new character who's been introduced. Raven. Or Ebony, sorry. Or Enobi. Sorry, it's Enobi. It's clearly Enobi. That's why it's in all caps right here. It's Enobi, not Mary Sue. This new character has arrived into the Hogwarts universe, the Harry Potter universe. And the events of the story start after her arrival, some time after her arrival. And so she's had time to embed herself into the Hogwarts life, to make relationships with other characters, to get to know people. Because of that time that she's had, it makes sense that these characters would have changed as a result of knowing her. This is good characterization. It's possible it could have been done badly. And, I mean, what would be us? But it wasn't. And so I think the criticism definitely seems unwarranted, unfair even. Clearly, they knew each other beforehand. And Ebony, or Enobi, has changed the nature of Draco Malfoy, the way that he relates to other people, the way that he acts. It's different now. Perhaps because he shows high degrees of deference toward other people, other ideas, other ways of life, not being racist. Probably not the racist thing. He's probably still pretty racist. That's a harder one to change. Draco! I shouted. What the fuck do you think you were doing? Draco didn't answer, but he stopped the flying car and he walked out of it. I walked out of it too, curiously. Now, of course, she's responding as what the fuck do you think you're doing driving into the Forbidden Forest? That's how we would feel as well. Why would you drive into the Forbidden Forest like this? What the fuck do you think you are doing? It's a bad idea. You don't want to drive directly into the Forbidden Forest. Who does that? Draco Malfoy in this universe does that. Of course, now he might have some additional considerations. He is driving a Mercedes-Benz and it flies, but his family is wealthy, so he doesn't even have to worry about being able to buy another one of these if this one gets, ruined. He's not going to receive any kind of trouble from his father, Lucius Malfoy, who probably would have disciplined him before, but now we don't have to worry about that. His father's not going to discipline him now. And why is that? His father has also evolved as a character as a result of knowing Enobi. As a result of getting to know her, he has changed his tune on how he's going to relate to and treat his son. This is a character, Enobi is a character who has introduced significant growth to many of the main antagonists in the original Harry Potter series. And I think in that sense, what we see here is the result of years and years of development of a character who has so thoroughly impacted the souls and makeup and behavior of these characters that, now we're seeing the results of it. That's a powerful character to have. Now, we do have them stopping a flying car on their way to the Forbidden Forest. It's not entirely clear if they were flying before this, but it's conceivable that a flying car could stop in midair. Sure. Maybe it stalled. Probably didn't. He stopped the flying car. Yeah, why not? And he walked out of it. I walked out of it too, curiously. She adds curiously because she is aware that stopping the flying car and stepping out of it would be a curious thing to do. But, of course, she's a vampire. She can fly. Probably. Draco is a wizard. Maybe he can also fly. What the fucking hell? I asked angrily. Ebony, he asked. What? I snapped. Draco leaned in extra close, and I looked into his gothic red eyes. He was wearing coloured contacts, which revealed so much depressing sorrow and evilness, and then suddenly I didn't feel mad anymore. And then... Suddenly, just as Draco kissed me passionately. We've got suddenly just as I... That's actually what happened here. So this... We can blame the editor for this. The editor should have caught this. This is a failure of completing this sentence or starting the next one effectively. That should have been caught by the editor. Suddenly, just as Draco kissed me passionately. But perhaps we just have an interruption here. Perhaps we really just need an M dash. And 2 hyphens. The M dash would probably fix this. Suddenly, just as Draco kissed me passionately. Right? And then his action is sort of interrupting even her explanation of the action. This makes the narrative much, much more engaging. Draco climbed on top of me, and we started to make out keenly against a tree. You can make out, or you can make out keenly. You can add some intellect, some intellectual stimulation into this. He's a keen boy. He's an intelligent boy. In that way, you can also make out keenly. There's a lot of mental activity occurring here. He took off my top, and I took off his clothes. I even took off my bra. Then he put his thingy in my you-know-what, and we did it for the first time. Now, a lot of people have asked, how do you write a sex scene while not losing any of your younger audience? Or without necessarily marking this as exclusively for mature audiences? How do you make sure that your sex scene is appropriately accessible to the younger ages? To them, I usually respond, why would you want to do that? And most people, I think, usually err on the side of caution. Oh, you cut the sex scene. Maybe you make some slight allusion to it. But we pretty much avoid stating it directly. This is how you can do that. How do you make it appropriate for a younger audience? Well, you put your thingy in his you-know-what. Or his thingy in your you-know-what. Now you don't have to worry about whether or not you're using language that is going to make the story inaccessible for some readers. If they don't know what it is, then the you-know-what doesn't refer to anything. Because it's you-know-what. His thingy requires prior knowledge of interpreting what the thingy is. And if a younger reader doesn't know what the thingy and the you-know-what are, well then, you have successfully written a scene that remains accessible to anyone who doesn't know what these things are. We essentially get to talk about these things out in the open without having to worry about whether or not a reader stumbles in and suddenly starts looking at it. What is the thingy? What is the you-know-what? What's it matter to you? Just skip on to the next scene, kitty. Kitty. Ooh, that's... ugh. Blech. I want to vomit now. I meant kiddo. That's what I meant to say. Totally different. Oh, oh, oh! I screamed. I was beginning to get an orgasm. We started to kiss everywhere, and my pale body became all warm. And then... What the hell are you doing, you motherfuckers? It was Dumbledore. Bet you weren't expecting that one. Dumbledore, out of nowhere. That one is the big reveal. What we would want here in a published work, we would want enough ellipsis to take us onto the next page. That way, the reveal happens, we turn the page, we don't know who said this phrase. And indeed, the moment it's revealed that it's Dumbledore, we're on edge. What? Dumbledore said, "What the hell are you doing, you motherfuckers?" That doesn't sound like a Dumbledore-like phrase. Our expectations have been subverted here. Artfully. And with enough ellipses, they would have been subverted onto the next page. This would have been a cinematic reveal. Chapter 5. Stop flaming. If you flam, it means you're a prep or a poser. The only reason Dumbledore swore is cause he had a headache, okay? And on top of that, he was mad at them for having sex. P.S. I'm not updating until I get 5 good reviews. A reasonable expectation. I mean, generally speaking, it's very difficult, of course. We all know the difficulties of self-publishing. And one of the biggest obstacles, one of the biggest hurdles for someone who's trying to self-publish a work is the fact that when people buy your book, oftentimes they don't review it. Reviews are incredibly valuable for self-published authors because reviews sort of act as the method of assurance to people considering buying the book that this is worth their money. Most people don't want to go and purchase a book. First of all, most people don't want to purchase a book. But most people also don't want to purchase a book that they don't have a certain guarantee is going to be of a certain quality. And in this sense, reviews are incredibly valuable for those who are trying to self-publish. They are also incredibly valuable to people who are publishing on the internet. She wants more people to come to this site, more people to enjoy the story, and less of these people who are just flamming it unfairly. So it's a sensible request. It's motivated with good reason here that she would want at least 10 reviews, 10 good reviews, sorry, 5 good reviews before she continues publishing this story for free for people. I mean, she's basically providing a public service. It's honestly a shame that she didn't have 5 good reviews already. She probably should have had 5 good reviews. That's just my opinion. Dumbledore made Draco and I follow him. He kept shouting at us angrily. "You ludicrous fools," he shouted. Now, why did I pronounce ludicrous that way? Well, the thing is, you could read this as though ludicrous was just spelled wrong. But I think that's uncharitable to the many layers of humor and subversion of our expectations that this author is embedding in the work. It is spelled Ludacris, like Ludacris, the rapper. Indeed, in the time that this was published in 2006, I think Ludacris was actually at some point of his peak. He was doing well for himself at that point, I believe. It makes sense that she would be referencing Ludacris. The way that this is correctly read is, "You ludicrous fools," he shouted. I started to cry tears of blood down my pallid face. Reminder, she's pale, of course, so we want to make sure that we have an appropriate picture of how stark the contrast is. The red blood against this pale, pale face. Draco comforted me. When we went back to the castle, Dumbledore took us to Professor Snape and Professor McGonagall, who were both looking very angry. "They were having sexual intercourse in the Forbidden Forest," he yelled, in a furious voice. "Why did you do such a thing, you mediocre dunces?" asked Professor McGonagall. "How dare you?" demanded Professor Snape. That is a demand, by the way. You can demand of people an explanation in this way. It's a question. How dare you? It's not an accusation or something interrogative. He's really asking a question. How did you dare to do this? How dare you? And in that way, it makes sense that he would be demanding this, demanding that they offer an explanation to satisfy this. "How dare you?" demanded Professor Snape. But it's actually a question, of course, so it's, "How dare you?" demanded Professor Snape. And then Draco shrieked, "Because I love her!" Now, I want to take a moment to appreciate the simplicity of the story delivery here, because a lot of people, I think, would try to get caught up in sort of the politics of this kind of interaction, about the expectations that our characters have of each other, how they should be responding to these kinds of things. Internally, Draco, you might think Draco would be thinking, I've got to maintain my school standing. I don't want to get expelled. I've got to worry about my dad. What's he going to say? Where's the Mercedes-Benz? All of this kind of stuff. He's got a lot of considerations on his mind. And you might think that he would try to sort of finagle his way out of this, try to like lie about something, or maybe like try to divert their attention, distract them. But no. It makes sense. In this moment, with all of that going on in his head, he's going to just be honest. He's just going to say, because I love her. That's why I did it. That's why I had sex with her. There is no simpler reason to have sex with someone than because you love them. That makes sense. And in this way, we are seeing how much Draco has really changed as a character. He has gone from being the conniving, lying dick we saw in Harry Potter to now being a much more honest version of himself. He knows what motivates his actions. Love. This deepening of his character is what makes this work so fantastic. Because we never got this side of Draco in Harry Potter. And it's a shame. Everyone was quiet. Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall still looked mad, but Professor Snape said, "Fine, very well. You may go up to your rooms." Draco and I went upstairs while the teachers glared at us. "Are you okay, Ebony?" Draco asked me gently. "Yeah, I guess," I lied. I went to the girls' dorm and brushed my teeth and my hair, and changed into a low-cut black floor-length dress with red lace all around it and black high heels. When I came out, Draco was standing in front of the bathroom, and he started to sing "I Just Want to Live" by Good Charlotte. I was so flattered, even though he wasn't supposed to be there. We hugged and kissed. After that, we said goodnight, and he reluctantly went back into his room. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever gotten ready for bed, and maybe you think, I'm going to put on my slippers, I'm going to put on socks, something comfortable, but you're not a vampire. A vampire has to stand in a coffin or lie down in one, but they've also got to look fabulous. High heels make sense if you're going to bed. and you want to look fabulous. Again, this is something that requires that extra level of consideration, an extra level of thinking. What would be motivating this character as they're getting ready for bed? What kinds of considerations do they have? She's a vampire. She's got to get into a coffin. She's got to be standing there. She's got to look fabulous. She's got to be wearing everything from Hot Topic. Hot Topic doesn't sell slippers. I know. I've been there. I looked. They only sell black high heels. We've already been told she gets all of her clothes from Hot Topic. So, of course, she's not going to suddenly be able to get shoes from another store. That would be going against, the world that we've already built. That would be counter to the information we've already been given in the narrative. And it wouldn't be something that would be like subverting our expectations. Where'd you get these slippers from? Oh, she got them from Spencer's down the street. I don't think Spencer sells slippers either, by the way. I did not look in Spencer's for slippers. So this is an example of how we keep that world building consistent, how we really make sure that we're thinking about these things on deeper levels. We're staying cognizant and aware of all of the story building, character building, the world building that we've been sort of, embedding into the story since chapter 1. And now we're at chapter 6. Right? This stuff is coming to a head now. Shut up, preps, okay? P.S. I will not update until you give me good reviews. Again, a reasonable request. Now, she didn't specify a number here, so probably 2 is enough to satisfy this. 1, obviously, would only be a good review. But 2 is 2 good reviews. But we can also assume she probably is sticking to her earlier number of 5. At this point, I would say it's almost criminal she didn't have 5 good reviews. Or reviews. The next day, I woke up in my coffin. Of course. Where else is she going to wake up, people? I put on a black miniskirt that was all ripped around the end, and a matching top with red skulls all over it, and high-heeled boots that were black. I put on 2 pairs of skull earrings and 2 crosses in my ears. I spray painted my hair with purple. In the Great Hall, I ate some Count Chocula cereal with blood instead of milk. She's a vampire, right? We gotta keep up with this world building. It's it'll just trample us if we're not careful. We've got to keep up with it. Count Chocula, the only cereal a vampire would eat. Count Chocula cereal with blood instead of milk. Like, that's some serious thinking. And a glass of red blood. Could have been blue blood. Could have been green blood. Maybe it was bug blood. But no, red blood, because that's what a vampire drinks. Of course, we're making some kind of romantic allusion to how people drink red wine with their cereal. Right? This is all part of the sort of natural way that we're trying to make these connections with the reader. The reader is used to drinking red wine with their cereal. And so we want to make this kind of connection. What is it that you're used to doing? What is it that this character is used to doing? We think about these things, and when we present them to the reader in this way, we're inviting the reader to form a deeper connection with the main character, to identify more with them, to understand more about, what's common in their lives. Suddenly, someone bumped into me. All the blood spilled over my top. Bastard! I shouted angrily. I regretted saying it when I looked up, because I was looking into the pale white face of a gothic boy with spiky black hair with red streaks in it. He was wearing so much eyeliner that I was going down his face, and he was wearing black lipstick. He didn't have glasses anymore, and now he was wearing red contact lenses, just like Draco's, and there was no scar on his forehead anymore. He had a manly stubble on his chin. He had a sexy English accent. He looked exactly like Joel Madden. He was so sexy that my body went all hot when I saw him. Kind of like an erection, only I'm a girl, so I didn't get one, you sicko. So this is an opportunity for us to sort of connect with readers of different genders, of course. A lot of people, they're reading this story. They're going to be men. A lot of men will be reading this story and not understand the sort of sexual fever in a woman's body when she sees a man that she is deeply attracted to. So we want to make sure that we leave this open for male audience members to connect with. How do we do that? How do we explain the same kind of sexual energy that a woman experiences to men? Well, we say it's kind of like an erection. But of course, we don't want to be sort of leaving the door open for this to be interpreted too literally. People can run away with the wrong idea. Oh, she got an erection. That's not what we want to be communicating. So we have to dial it back just a little bit and say, only I'm a girl, so I didn't get one, you sicko. Now, you might say, why is the you sicko necessary? Is it like, do we really need to be telling, the reader that their picture, the way that they were imagining this happening, that makes them kind of like sick? But this is really a way of like teasing the reader, or a way of engaging with them so that they feel like when they're reading this story that they're getting sort of a direct response from the main character. The main character is responding to the things that you're thinking. This is sort of meta. So in this way, I don't think we could have done this better. This covers all the bases. We relate it to the male audience members who are unaware what it feels like to be a woman and feel sexually connected to something or someone. We also, of course, explain that it's still different. It's not exactly like an erection. And of course, we get to tease the reader about the way that they were picturing this just too literally. It's a way of, inserting kind of like a meta humor, a joke. And that's how we can know that this author is clearly aware of what they're doing. There's a very deep consideration about how the reader is experiencing this part of the novel, this part of the story. How are they engaging with it? I'm so sorry, he said in a shy voice. Now, of course, this is Harry Potter. Blink and you miss it. A gothic boy with spiky black hair with red streaks in it. He was wearing so much eyeliner that I was going down his face, and he was wearing black lipstick, of course, because he is set up in the same sort of goth way that many of the other characters have been altered to fit the mood of this story. The mood of this story is much more, gothic and dark than a lot of our, readers are coming from, of course, because most of our readers are coming from Harry Potter, which is not gothic or dark. So we have to make sure that we're sort of telling them the new tone of how the story is working. We show the red contact lenses. They're just like Draco's, and that explains part of why the main character feels like she has such a connection to this. Because in some ways, Harry Potter is also resembling her favorite other Hogwarts student, the boy she likes. I'm so sorry, he said in a shy voice. That's all right. What's your name? I questioned. My name's Harry Potter, although most people call me Vampire these days, he grumbled. Most people call him Vampire these days. Now, what's the natural question that comes up from that? If most people call you Vampire these days, why do they call you Vampire? And of course, right as we think that, she asks it. Why? I exclaimed. Because I love the taste of human blood, he giggled. That's what I imagined for giggling. I'm sorry if that's not the sound you pictured. But I very much see this interaction going, my name's Harry Potter, although most people call me Vampire these days, he grumbled. Why? I exclaimed. Actually, this should be a little bit more emotional. Why? I exclaimed. Because I love the taste of human blood. Well, I am a vampire, I confessed. Confession. So this is a very subtle way that we're telling the reader this isn't a thing that you share openly, right? She's confessing it. It's something she's been sort of hiding or concealing from people. Well, I'm a vampire, I confessed. Really? He whimpered. He whimpered it. He whimpered it. So really? I'm trying to imagine how you whimper that, but I think it works probably better in your head. I'm sure you can imagine him whimpering. Really? Maybe that's more like it. Really? He whimpered. Well, I'm a vampire, I confessed. Really? He whimpered. Yeah! I roared. I think I just clipped my mic there. Yeah! I roared. This exchange here establishes her dominance. That's what we're doing. This is an alpha female an alpha female at work, folks. We have the giggling, whimpering, but still sexy English accent with manly stubble, Harry Potter. But people don't call him Harry Potter these days. They just call him Vampire. So we have the sexy English with manly stubble vampire who giggles at the love for human blood. And he whimpers at the revelation that he's talking to a fellow vampire. And what does our main character do here? She takes the opportunity to assert her dominance. Well, I'm a vampire, I confessed. Really? He whimpered. Yeah, I roared. We sat down to talk for a while. Then Draco came up behind me and told me he had a surprise for me, so I went away with him. Bam. Chapter 7. What's the surprise? What's the surprise? We're on the edge of our seat. We want to know, where is this going? What is left for us? What do we have in store for this surprise in Chapter 7? The only way to know is to keep reading, folks. That's what we're going to do. Chapter 7. Bring Me to Life. Now, we haven't named any of the chapters before this chapter. But if the progression of the story is any indication, and if the title of the story is any indication, every chapter should be named after an Evanescence song. That's the only way to really complete this. If I had to issue, one criticism of this work, it is that opportunity wasn't more directly taken advantage of. We do have this chapter, Bring Me to Life, and that gives us some indication that these Evanescence references are much more direct. They're more intentional. It wasn't clear at first that the title of the story, My Immortal, was referencing the Evanescence song. Now it's clear. So in that sense, I think we could have done this earlier. We should have more chapters named after Evanescence songs, maybe other bands too. Linkin Park. I don't know. What's another? Fall Out Boy? I'm running out of like gothic emo bands, but you get the gist. Could have had a chapter named Thanks for the Memories, right? Like that would be it's just something that would have rounded this out a little bit more. Well, okay, you guys, I'm only reading this because I got 5 God reviews. In BTW, I want to write the next chapter till I get 10 God bonds. Stow flaming, or I'll report you. Evany isn't a Mary Sue, okay? She isn't perfect. She's a Satanitz. And she has problems. She's depressed, for God's sake. Sorry, that one actually is depressed. She's depressed, for God's sake. She's depressed, for God's sake. You don't think of her as a Mary Sue. It's not a fair criticism to level. She slit her wrists in the 3rd chapter or the 4th chapter, one of them. She slit her wrists in one of the earliest chapters of the story. It's clearly evident. This is a story about internal struggle manifesting. The internal struggles with love triangles and high school anxieties and Voldemort. I assume he's part of this. I scrolled down a bit once, saw his name mentioned in this. So, I mean, we have real conflict developing. And it is a shame that she did not get 5 God reviews, or 5 God revows, or 10 God vons. I don't know what a von is, or really how it develops out of the word review or revow. But she should have had them. She should have had 10 God vons by this point. It's a crime against humanity. And she's a Satanitz, okay? A Satanitz. Nobody can be perfect if they're a Satanitz. Everybody knows this. You can't be like that's a character flaw in and of itself. Like, I don't know, being a Pastafarian. It's an inherent character flaw. Or being agnostic. Or being somebody who prefers, what are those things called? What are those? Calzones. If you like calzones, if you believe that they're superior to pizza, inherent character flaw. Like that's something that you can't like, you've got to work on that. You've got to fix it. Draco and I held our pale white hands with black nail polish as we went upstairs. This is deep. She's staring at their hands. She's staring at what holds them together, right? Because she's telling us what they look like, so obviously it's something she's looking at herself. She's staring at this meaningful connection she holds with Draco. It's substantive. I was wearing red Satanist this time, not Satanits. My bad. I was wearing red Satanist sings on my nails and red nail polish. See, does that sound like a Mary Sue to you? I waved to Vampire. Dark misery was in his depressed eyes. I guess he was jealous of me, that I was going out with Draco. Anyway, I went upstairs excitedly with Draco. We went into his room and locked the door. Then we started Frenching passively. And we took off each other's clothes enthusiastically. He felt me up before I took off my top. Then I took off my black leather bra and he took off his pants. I am curious to know if anyone out there has ever worn a leather bra. Now, to me, it sounds like it would be uncomfortable. But granted, I don't have to wear bras, so I could be wrong. I'd like a review, please. But nonetheless, this is a vampire, so she probably doesn't sweat, right? Sweating, I imagine, is maybe something to do with blood flow, probably. She would never overheat. Or maybe she's constantly overheating. I don't know. We can imagine she doesn't sweat. Seems consistent with the world building at this point. So, of course, a leather bra is going to pose less problems for someone who doesn't sweat. If she doesn't sweat. We'll need to consult some vampire physiology for this, but I think it's a reasonable presupposition for this universe. We went on the bed and started making out naked, and then he put his boy's thingy in mine, and we had sex. He put his boy's thingy in mine. Now, just to recap from before, friends. Don't be a sicko. She didn't mean his boy's thingy and her boy's thingy. She meant in her you-know-what. Again, it's the same thing. This is how we can do this so that a younger audience is still able to engage with this work without necessarily us having to worry about whether or not they're interpreting a sex scene from this. Potentially they aren't, right? Because it wouldn't be as clear to them. See, is that stupid? Oh, Draco, Draco! I screamed while getting an orgasm when all of a sudden I saw a tattoo I had never seen before on Draco's arm. It was a black heart with an arrow through it. On it, in bloody Gothic writing, were the words, "Vampire!" I was so angry. "You bastard!" I shouted angrily, jumping out of the bed. No, but you don't understand," Draco pleaded. But I knew too much. "No, you fucking idiot," I shouted. "You probably have AIDS anyway." The character's emotional. She's going to say some things that she doesn't mean. This is another instance in which she's clearly not a Mary Sue. She doesn't always know exactly the perfect thing to say, and sometimes she might consider it appropriate to say something like, "You have AIDS anyway." I put on my clothes all huffily, and then stomped out. Now, this is some insight into the fact that this character is aware of her imperfections. Normally, we would not use the word huffily. Now, it's a creative license there to make that word. I don't think that is a word, but we can make up words. That's totally fine. And normally we wouldn't use huffily and apply it to ourselves, because to say somebody walked out and they were huffy or something like that usually is to say something sort of, disparaging or something that's less flattering about the way that they walked out, the level of anger they had or something like that, the level to which they're not handling their emotions in a mature way. Here, though, this character is sort of admitting that personal fault. It's beautiful. It's three-dimensional. Draco ran out, even though he was naked. He had a really big you-know-what, but I was too mad to care. I stomped out and did so until I was in Vampire's classroom, where he was having a lesson with Professor Snape and some other people. Interesting use of the word people here, right? Because we think, are they not students? But she doesn't see them as mere students. She sees them for what they are, people, because she is a vampire. People are food to her. She's going to identify. It doesn't matter if they're students. It doesn't matter if they're classmates. It doesn't matter if they're family members. They're people Ergo, it's like if you walked into a room and maybe you're in a classroom full of animals, right? You are a student at an animal school for deer, and you walk in. You are someone who hunts and eats deer regularly. And you look around at your classmates. You are all classmates of Professor Deersnape. But you don't see your classmates as students. You see them as deer. That's what's going on here. She doesn't see them as classmates. She sees them as food. "Vampire Potter, you motherfucker!" I yelled. Chapter 8. So, again, I mean, this is, these cliffhangers are amazing. This is how you cliffhang. I really just, I don't have, like, there's nothing more to add to it. Stop flassing, okay? If you do, then you are a prep. Now, I don't know what flassing is. I'd like to assume it means the same as flaming. Or that maybe it was some kind of typo. But the S key and the M key are pretty far apart on the keyboard, so I tried consulting someone I knew about this. They did not know either. And last I checked on Urban Dictionary, it was equally unaware, but maybe I didn't do something right. In this sense, our author's notes are also making up language. They're also having that same kind of playful use of language that the story is having. It's another level. Everyone in the class stared at me, and then Draco came into the room, even though he was naked, and started begging me to take him back. My friend, Bloody Mary Smith, smiled at me understatedly. She flipped her long, waist-length, gothic black hair and opened her crimson eyes like blood that she was wearing contact lenses on. She had so again, nobody in this world actually has red eyes. This is the level of realism that we're working with. You wouldn't have red-eyed people. That'd be too convenient for painting villains or making people look evil. It's too melodramatic. We know that people's eye colors biologically are limited, usually unless, in the case of like albinism, where the pigment is such that there's no pigment, and so you only see the color of the veins and stuff and the blood vessels. That's what they're called. Goodness. We've still got to work with human biology, human physiology. So we're staying realistic. We've got a certain level of restraint here from the author, which is remarkable. It would have been really tempted in a world of wizards and vampires and witches. You just throw in red-eyed people. Why not? But we didn't. This isn't an anime, people. This is a story. This is a real, concrete story, a work of fiction with a certain level of heart and dedication to it. Love is invested in this. She had pale white skin that she was wearing white makeup on. Hermione was kidnapped when she was born. Her real parents are vampires, and one of them is a witch, but Voldemort killed her mother, and her father committed suicide because he was depressed about it. She still has nightmares about it, and she is very haunted and depressed. It also turns out her real last name is Smith and not Granger. Since she is converted to Satanism now, she is in Slytherin now, not Gryffindor. So this is all very good explanation to understand how our character got into this position. Why isn't her last name still Granger? Why is it that she's a Satanist? That was something that we didn't really have to ask, because now she's given us the exposition at the same time that she's given us the explanation for it, or how it affects this character. And all of it is in this backstory, just very poignantly, timely delivered right after the introduction of this character. And that's how you don't lose your audience. You don't want to introduce this new character and then later on explain that they're also the same character, that they're familiar with the books, but how they look totally different from the character that they've experienced in the books, and how they have a completely different backstory. You don't want to have to do that. If you do that in your fan fiction, you're going to lose people because people have been picturing this all wrong. You want them to go into this picturing Hermione Granger, but goth, emo, depressed with the last name Smith, and with both of her characters, or both of her parents who have been killed by Voldemort. One of them killed by Voldemort. The other one, depressingly, committed suicide after that. Of course, you want to develop this naturally so that people understand this is the same Hermione Granger they once knew, except now it's Bloody Mary Smith. Sensible. There's no other way to do this. What is it that you desire, you ridiculous dimwit? Snape demeaned angrily in his cold voice, but I ignored him. Vampire, I can't believe you cheated on me with Draco, I shouted at him. Everyone gasped. Now, it looks like we've got a little bit of a narrative shift here. Probably from Draco's perspective. That's what I have been trying to piece together here. It looks like it's from Draco's perspective, the next little bit. Normally we'd want some kind of scene break for this, but it looks like the format that the story was delivered in probably didn't allow for that. Maybe. So that would explain why. I don't know why Ebony was so mad at me. I had went out with Vampire. I'm bi, and so is Ebony. For a while, but then he broke my heart. He dumped me because he liked Brittany, a stupid preppy fucker. We were just good friends now. He had gone through horrible problems, and now he was gothic. Haha, like I would hang out with a prep. But I'm not going out with Draco anymore, said Vampire. Yeah, fucking right. Fuck off, you bastard, I screamed. I ran out of the room and into the forbidden forest where I'd lost my virility to Draco, and then I started to bust into tears. Stop blaming, okay? I didn't read all the books. This is from the movie, okay? So it's not my fault if Dumbledore swears. BeSt, I said he had a headache. And the reason Snap doesn't like Harry now is because he's Christian and Vampire is a Satanist. MCR rocks. MCR does rock. So really all of the hate is completely unwarranted. This is really from people who just don't like MCR enough. My Chemical Romance. And if you don't like My Chemical Romance going into this story, you're probably not going to like this story or My Chemical Romance coming out of it. That's just a fact. These preps who are flaming her story, they're being unfair. It was a story that was never meant for them in the first place. It was very clear from the first chapter. Our main character, Ebony, held up her middle finger to the preps. The same people who are now flaming her story. Why did they ever think this story was for them? Chapter 9. I was so mad and sad. Of course. I couldn't believe Draco for cheating on me. I began to cry against the tree where I did it with Draco. Then, all of a suddenly, an horrible man with red eyes and no nose and everything started flying towards me on a broomstick. He didn't have a nose, basically like Voldemort in the movie. And he was wearing all black, but it was obvious he wasn't gothic. It was Voldemort. It's clear that our character has seen the Harry Potter movies. And that's going to be important because the lens through which she has been interpreting all of this seems to have been shaped considerably by the Harry Potter movies on which her life is based. Naturally, she's going to feel some kind of schism between the unreality of the movies that she witnesses occurring on the screens and the reality of her everyday life, which is so drastically different. It's no wonder she has this deep-seated hatred for all the preps. The preps were what was conveyed in the movie. The movie is only preps. I mean, Hogwarts is basically made out to be a prep school. I mean, it couldn't be further from the truth. This isn't a prep school. This is a school for learning magic, and it's open to all. Preps, unfortunately, included. It was Voldemort. No! I shouted in a scared voice. But then Voldemort shouted, Imperius! And I couldn't run away. Sorry, that's not a Voldemort voice. That's my Dumbledore voice. We're going to do a different one for Voldemort. Imperius! No, we're not keeping that one either. I'm sorry. You're not going to be able to understand it, I think, if we have more than one word of dialogue. We'll work on it later. But then Voldemort shouted, Imperius! And I couldn't run away. Crookshanks! I shouted at him. Now, in the movies, Crookshanks was the name of Hermione's cat. But that's just not accurate to what happened in the reality of the Harry Potter universe occurring here. What happened here is Crookshanks was a spell that was used by Ebony. And it's used by Ebony to do, apparently, something against Voldemort. Maybe it's the disarming spell. Knocked him off his broomstick. Maybe it's a spell that pushes people back. It doesn't matter. And this is actually an excellent way to deliver. You don't want to, just sort of give exposition to your reader about what these spells are doing, what their function is, or what we're expecting them to do. It makes much more sense. It's much better and more effective if you just tell us the effects. And the effect is that it knocked Voldemort right off his broomstick. Perfect. We're in the action. We're engaged. Crookshanks! I shouted at him. Voldemort fell off his broom and started to scream. I felt bad for him, even though I'm a sadist, so I stopped. That's a level of emotional depth. This character is a sadist, but she still feels bad for people. It's complicated. Ebony, he yelled. Thou must kill Vampire Potter. I thought about Vampire, and his sexa eyes, and his gothic black hair, and how his face looks just like Joel Madden. I remembered that Draco had said I didn't understand, so I thought, what if Draco went out with Vampire before I went out with him, and they broke up? What if? See, I wonder if I can get this guy to be, here's what we're going to do. That away. Just realized it's on the wrong side of the screen. There we go. That's better. That's better for you. Be more generous. Screen space here. No, Voldemort! I shouted back. Voldemort gave me a gun. No, please, I begged. Thou must, he yelled. If thou does not, then I shall kill thy beloved Draco. How did you know? I asked in a surprised way. Voldemort got a, dude, you're so retarded, look on his face. I hath telekinesis, he answered cruelly. And if you doth not kill Vampire, then thou know what will happen to Draco, he shouted. Then he flew away angrily on his broomstick. Voldemort is very smart in this scene in a way that we did not see of the Voldemort in the movie. Voldemort wants Harry Potter dead, but constantly we see people in the movies trying to kill Harry Potter with Avada Kedavra. You don't want to use Avada Kedavra. Avada Kedavra if you're familiar with the Harry Potter lore, or if you aren't, it's the same, even if you're not familiar with it. Avada Kedavra is one of 3 forbidden spells. And you use these spells. If you use these spells, the Ministry of Magic will know, they will find you, and they will hunt you down, and you will be arrested. On top of that, it requires a certain level of skill from a wizard to use any of these 3 forbidden spells. They're not easy to use. They require a great deal of power, a great deal of control over your wand and your emotions. And because of that, he's not going to rely on Ebony being able to use Avada Kedavra. She probably can. We've seen the depth of her emotions. We've seen the strength of her spells. She was capable of knocking Voldemort off a broom just by saying Hermione's cat's name from the movie. And perhaps here it's a spell that does something else. There's really no way to know. But the point is, it would be irresponsible of Voldemort not to ensure that Ebony has a way within her own abilities to kill Harry Potter. So what does he do? He gives her a gun. Genius. 2 birds, 1 bullet. You solve the problem of how is she going to kill Harry Potter, and you do it in a way that's not going to be expected. Nobody in Hogwarts will be expecting that she's going to kill a wizard with a gun. Nobody's done it before. There has not ever been, as far as I know of the Harry Potter lore, a shooting at Hogwarts. Now, granted, it's in England, so it's probably very difficult to smuggle a gun in. But Voldemort has now made it possible for her. They don't have metal detectors. Why would they? They're a magic school. And what idiot would think, I'm going to kill wizards with a gun? And it's precisely that level of thinking, that level of ingenuity, that allows this plan to succeed. What's the number one way no wizard will see it coming? You shoot them in the face. Done. One and done. I was so scared and mad, and I didn't know what to do. Suddenly, Draco came into the woods. Draco, I said. Hi. She's in shock. Okay, you might think this is a poorly written line of dialogue. She just says hi. After she just saw Voldemort, Voldemort wants her to kill her beloved Harry Potter with a gun, the one who looks exactly like Joel Madden. This isn't poor writing. She's in shock. They're conveying that to us with a line of dialogue that seems somewhat odd. Draco, I said. Hi. Hi, he said back, but his face was all sad. He was wearing white foundation and messy eyeliner, kind of like a pentagram. Get it? Between Joel Madden and Gerard Way. Are you okay? I asked. No, he answered. I'm sorry I got all mad at you, but I thought you cheated on me, I expelled. That's okay, he said, all depressed, and we went back into Hogwarts together making out. What this conveys is how much Ebony cares for her friends more than she even cares for herself. She's a selfless person. She's a person who makes a lot of sacrifices. And so she's not even going to bother trying to explain all this weird stuff that just happened to Voldemort. Draco is in an emotional trouble here. She's there for him when he needs her. She's giving in that way. Excellent characterization. It really shows the kinds of connections that our characters are having. Now, I can't read this author's note word for word. But I'll just highlight it for you if you'd like to read it yourself. And I'll just start from about the 4th word in. If you do not like my story, then fuck off. P.S. It turns out Bloody Mary isn't a muggle after all, and she and Vampire are evil. That's why they moved houses, okay? Exactly. They moved houses because they're evil. Evil people do weird things sometimes. It's like explaining away, you know, why did the Joker do this stuff in Batman? Because he's crazy. We can just have sort of these reductive explanations. Let the reader fill those explanations with their own content. Let the reader just, you know, sort of walk away from it. Take whatever they will. I was really scared about Voldemort all day. I was even upset. Went to rehearsals with my gothic metal band, Bloody Gothic Rose 666. I'm the lead singer of it, and I play guitar. People say that we sound like a cross between GC, Slipknot, and My Chemical Romance. The other people in the band are Bloody Mary, Vampire, Draco, Ron, although we call him Diabolo now. He has black hair with blue streaks in it. And Hagrid. Only today Draco and Vampire were depressed, so they weren't coming, and we wrote songs instead. I knew Draco was probably slitting his wrists. He wouldn't die because he was a vampire too, and the only way you can kill a vampire is with a CROSS, there's no way I'm writing that, or a stake. And Vampire was probably watching a depressing movie like The Corpse Bride. We can understand some of the sort of, a lot of times people assume that the only way to kill vampires is with, you know, like a stake through the heart. STAKE, through the heart, a stake. But this is a more unique world than that. The way that you kill vampires in this world is with a stake, STEAK. They're vegetarians. They only drink blood. So of course you throw meat at them, they can't do anything with it. They starve to death. It is interesting that she's comfortable writing cross. No, she's comfortable writing the word stake, but not cross. It's almost as though she knows that it's spelled differently. Perhaps she intentionally misspelled it so that she would get across the message. There's no other way to spell cross. So she intentionally misspells stake so she can use the word, but in a subtler way. And Vampire was probably watching a depressing movie like The Corpse Bride. I thought that movie had a happy ending, but I guess it's depressing in the standpoint that it's about dead people. I put on a black leather shirt that showed off my boobs and tiny matching miniskirt that said Simple Plan on the butt. You might think I'm a slut, but I'm really not. We were singing a cover of Helena, and at the end of the song I suddenly burst into tears. Ebony, are you okay? Bloody Mary asked in a concerted voice. What the fuck do you think? I asked angrily. And then I said, well, Voldemort came and the fucking bastard told me to fucking kill Harry. But I don't want to kill him because he's really nice, even if he did grow up with Draco. But if I don't kill Harry, then Voldemort will fucking kill Draco. I burst into tears. Suddenly, Draco jumped out from behind a wall. Why didn't you fucking tell me? He shouted. How could you? You fucking poser muggle bitch. See, is that out of character? I started to cry and cry. Draco started to cry too, all sensitive. Then he ran out crying. We practiced for 1 more hour. Then suddenly Dumbledore walked in angrily. His eyes were all fiery, and I knew this time it wasn't because he had a headache. What have you done? He started to cry wisely. See, that's basically not swearing, and this time he was really upset, and you will see why. Ebony, Draco has been found in his room. He committed suicide by slitting his wrists. Subversion of expectations right there. We were just told Draco's a vampire. He was slitting his wrist literally at the beginning of this chapter. This is the delivery, the payoff for that moment that we were told that information. There's no way that he can die by slitting his wrist because he's a vampire. He's immortal. Vampires can only die with a cross or by, a stake through the heart. We've introduced a new potential threat to vampires. Their own depression. Their own tendencies to self-harm. They thought that their self-harm was only going to be an emotional remedy, but now it very much is a threat to their lives. And I want to sort of, hammer in on the stakes that are being raised here. So many of these characters appear to be slitting their wrists. So many of these characters are depressed. So many of these characters have tendencies towards self-harm. And so, how many of them are at risk? Potentially all of them. This is how you increase the stakes in a story. This is how you raise the stakes, increase your reader's emotional investment, and you do it with a pretty good payoff. Chapter 11. I said stop flaming up, preps. See if this chapter is stupid. It deals with really serious issues. See for yourself if it's stupid BRW thanks to my friend Raven for slapping me. Now that might have seemed incomprehensible, but what's really important is that it's only comprehensible to the people who need to parse that message. It's basically in code. That's one way that our author is clearly trying to communicate with a very specific subset of her audience, a way that she wants a certain committed base of people to invest in this story. She does that by basically inserting coded messages. No, I screamed. I was horrified. But Bloody Mary tried to comfort me, but I told her to fuck off, and I ran to my room crying myself. Dumbledore chased me after shouting, but he had to stop when I went into my room because he would look like a perv that way. He would. So that's good characterization right there. Dumbledore would know to stop before the room because he doesn't want to look like a perv entering a girl's room without any permission. Anyway, I started crying tears of blood, and then I slit both of my wrists. Stakes raised. She could die from this. They got all over my clothes, so I took them off and jumped into the bath angrily while I put on a Linkin Park song at full volume. We're getting a real sense of the emotional engagement this character is having in this setting. Linkin Park at full volume, that's visceral. That's something all of us know what it sounds like, what it feels like to be blasting Linkin Park at full volume. Easy way to connect with readers. Do something familiar to them. Now, she slit both of her wrists and she's worried that it's going to get on her clothes. Seems like definitely vampires do bleed in this world. And indeed, that makes sense. We saw Draco died from slitting his wrists. That would only be possible if slitting your wrist led to bleeding to death. I grabbed a stake and almost stuck it into my heart to commit suicide. I was so fucking depressed. I got out of the bathtub and put on a black low-cut dress with lace all over it sandily. I put on black high heels with pink metal stuff on the ends and 6 pairs of skull earrings. I couldn't fucking believe it. Then I looked out the window and screamed. Snap was spying on me, and he was taking a videotape of me, and Lupin was masticating to it. They were sitting on their broomsticks. It would be very disturbing to see 2 of your teachers, one of which is, both of them are on broomsticks, one of whom is videotaping you as you're taking a bath, and the other one is chewing something menacingly. He's masticating to it. I mean, that is disturbing. What are you chewing? Why are you chewing it in such a way that I can see you chewing? Why are you chewing so thoroughly to this videotaping? It'd be disturbing. Just imagine somebody outside your window staring in as you're taking a bath. They're just chewing. You don't know what they're chewing. They're just gnawing on it with their teeth. Like a dog, like an animal. And Lupin was a werewolf, or he is a werewolf. Probably still a werewolf in this story. So, is he going to transform? Is this part of his wolfish tendencies? It's in character for him to be masticating. It makes sense. And it's no less disturbing when it's happening right outside her window toward her as she's having a bath. Disturbing stuff. Ew, you fucking pervs. Stop looking at me naked. Are you pedos or what? I screamed, putting on a black towel with a picture of Marilyn Mason on it. Suddenly, Vampire ran in. Abracadabra! He yelled at Snape and Lupin, pointing his womb. I took my gun and shot Snape and Lupin a gazillion times, and they both started screaming and the camera broke. Suddenly, Dumbledore ran in. Ebony, it has been revealed that someone has... No! He shouted, looking at Snape and Lupin, and then he waved his wand, and suddenly... Hagrid ran outside on his broom and said, Everyone, we need to talk. What do you know, Hagrid? You're just a little Hogwarts student. I may be a Hogwarts student. Hagrid paused angrily. But I am also a Satanist. This cannot be, Snap said in a crisp voice as blood dripped from his hand where Dumbledore's wand had shot him. There must be other factors. You don't have any, I yelled in madly. Lupin held up the camera triumphantly. The lens may be ruined, but the tape is still there. I felt faint, more than I normally do, like how it feels when you do not drink enough blood. Most readers are going to be familiar with that feeling. Now, you could have, likened this to a feeling that readers would probably know who aren't vampires, but everybody knows what it would be like to be a vampire. It's like hunger, right? Obviously, we don't need to be explaining this world building too intensely to an audience who's already likely familiar with it. This is writing 101 stuff. Why are you doing this? Lupin said angrily while he rubbed his dirty hands on his cloak. I don't know what a cloak is. I don't know why I said that in a British accent. I don't know what a cloak is. But his hands are dirty. He's getting this cloak dirty. So, that's gross. And then I heard the words that I'd heard before, but not from him. I did not know whether to feel shocked and happy or to bite him and drink his blood, because I felt faint. Because, Hagrid said, and he paused in the air, dramatically, waving his hand in the air. Then swooped he in, singing to the tune of a gothic version of a song by 50 Cent. Because you're gothic? Snape asked, in a little afraid voice, because he was afraid it meant he was connected with Satan. Because I love her. Chapter 12. Stop fang, okay? Hagrid is a pedo too. A lot of people in American schools are like that. I wanted to address the issue. How do you know Snap ain't Christian? Plus, Hagrid isn't really in love with Ebony. That was Cedric, okay? There's really no need for her to be this defensive. Except, obviously, she's been receiving just unwarranted levels of hate. It's not fair. For the level of quality that this work is, it's criminal. No one should be hating a work this much. I was about to slit my wrists again with the silver knife that Drago had given me in case anything happened to him. He had told me to use it valiantly against an enemy, but I knew that we must both go together. No! I thought it was Hagrid, but it was Vampire. He started to scream. OMFG! No! My scar hurts! And then his eyes rolled up. You could only see his red whites. I stopped. How did you know? I saw it, and my scar turned back into the lightning bolt. No! I ran up closer. I thought you didn't have a scar anymore. I shouted. I do, but Diabolo changed it into a pentagram for me, and I always cover it up with foundation, he said back. Anyway, my scar hurt, and it turned back into the lightning bolt. Save me! Then I had a vision of what was happening to Draco. Voldemort has him in bondage. Anyway, I was in the school nurse's office now, recovering from my slit wrists. Snap and Lupin and Hagrid were there too. They were going to St. Mango's after they recovered, because they were pedophiles, and you can't have those fucking pervs teaching in a school with lots of hot girls. Dumbledore had constipated the Sidio camera they took of me naked. I put up my middle finger at them. Anyway, Hagrid came into my hospital bed holding a bouquet of pink roses. Ennaby, I need to tell you something. Ennaby, I need to tell you something, he said in a serious voice, giving me the roses. Fuck off, I told him. You know I fucking hate the colour pink anyway, and I don't like fucked up preps like you, I snapped. Hagrid had been mean to me before being gothic. No, Ennaby. Hagrid says, those are not roses. What? Are they goths too, you poser prep? I asked because I was angry that he had brought me pink roses. I saved your life, he yelled angrily. No, you didn't, I replied. You saved me from getting a Paris Hilton pee video made from your shower scene and being viewed by Snap and Lupin, who masturbated. See, is that spelled wrong? To it, he added silently. Whatever, I yelled angrily. He pointed his wand at the pink roses. These aren't roses. He suddenly looked at them with an evil look in his eye, and muttered, well, if you wanted honesty, that's all you had to say. That's not a spell, that's an MCR song, I corrected him, wisely. Wise indeed. We want to be correcting people when they say things wrong. I know, I was just warming up my vocal cords. Then he screamed, Pachulis Marengo mi cremechili romasio. For all you cool gothic MCR fans out there, that is a tribute, especially for Raven. I love you, girl. Imo no to okeo. Author's note was in the middle of that spell there, but obviously there's a very special reference to My Chemical Romance that needed to be drawn out for those who aren't MCR fans. They need to be you need to draw attention to this. This is how you include audience members on a part of your writing that could otherwise be just sort of left for a niche audience. You don't want to do that too much. You want everybody to be in on the inside joke, right? You don't just want to have a bunch of inside jokes that people can't really appreciate because they're not MCR fans. And then the roses turned into a huge black flame floating in the middle of the air, and it was black, Now I knew he wasn't a prep. Okay, I believe you now. WTF is Draco? Hagrid rolled his eyes. I looked into the balls of flame, but I could see nothing. You see, NRB, Dumbledore said, watching the two of us watching the flame. To see what is in the flames, you must find yourself first, 'kay? Haha, you're EVeR's flames, get it? So this is the author calling out how she's connecting with this work and sort of inviting readers to interpret things on a deeper level. We have a very deep reference going on here. She's peering into the flames, and Dumbledore's inviting her to interpret wisdom from it. There's wisdom in how these preps are flaming you. Hagrid is a stand-in for all of the negative reviewers, the pervs and the preps, the people who think she's saving her from herself. She's saving the people who think that the author needs to be saved from herself. That's what I meant. And what the author's doing here is reclaiming. I stare into the flames. I can improve myself from this. I have found myself, okay, you mean old man? Hagrid yelled. Dumbledore looked shocked. I guess he didn't have a headache, or else he would have said something back. Right there, we've got the restraint that we weren't showing before in our characterization of Dumbledore, or that people felt like she wasn't showing before. Dumbledore doesn't have a headache now. So he's staying in character. He's keeping that restraint that he's not going to insult somebody. He's not going to, hurl an insult or curse word at somebody. Hagrid stormed off back into his bed. You are a liar, Prof. Dumbledore. Anyway, when I got better, I went upstairs and put on a black leather mini dress that was all ripped on the ends with white lace on it. There was some corset stuff on the front. Then I put on black fishnets and black high-heeled boots with pictures of Billy Joe Armstrong on them. I put my hair all out around me, so I looked like Samara from The Ring. If you don't know who she is, you're a prep, so fuck off. And I put on blood-red lipstick, black eyeliner, and black lip gloss. You look kawaii, girl, Bloody Mary said, sadly. Fangs, you do too, I said, sadly, too. But I was still upset. I slit both of my wrists, feeling totally depressed, and I sucked all the blood. I cried again in my bathroom, and put the shades on so Snap and Lupin couldn't spy on me this time. I went to some classes. Vampire was in the hair of magic creatures. He looked all depressed because Draco had disappeared, and he had used to be in love with Draco. He was sucking some blood from a Hufflepuff. Hi, he said in a depressed way. Hi back, I said in a equally sad way. We both looked at each other for some time. Harry had beautiful red gothic eyes, so much like Draco's. I mean, they probably bought the contacts from the same company. Then we jumped on each other and started screwing each other. Stop it now, you horny simpletons, shouted Professor McGoggle, who was watching us, and so was everyone else. Vampire, you fucker, I said, slapping him. Stop trying to screw me. You know I loved Draco, I shouted, and then I ran away angrily. Just then he started to scream. OMFG, no! My scar hurts! And then his eyes rolled up. You could only see his red whites. No, I ran up closer. "I thought you didn't have a scar anymore," I shouted. "I do, but Diabolo changed it into a pentagram for me, and I always cover it up with foundation," he said back. "Anyway, my scar hurt, and then I had a vision of what was happening to Draco." "Voldemort has him in bondage." Now, you might think, if you've been with us, you might think, didn't we hear that scene before? What we got there was an artful recap, because the next chapter is going to be very, it's important what just happened in that chapter and what happened. That we're driving this home. We're repeating this as a sort of a literary device to make sure that our readers are remembering the events of these separate events that were very, very similar. But the main character probably just forgot about, the fact that he covered up with foundation, that it was changed into a pentagram, all that stuff. The main character forgot that, naturally. So it's important that we re-emphasize it. Now, we just hit the sort of halfway point. So what I'm going to do, I am going to go grab a beer. We will finish this. And I think it's important that we do that with sufficient levels of engagement. So, I'm going to put on a short interlude song. Here we are. Here's some rock for you. Get us feeling in the mood for this. And I'll be back in about 3 minutes. I was muted. There we are. We are back. We are back. Cheers. Again, I mean, anyone who can't see the intense layers of complexity to this narrative, I mean, it's so apparent. It's so obvious. It's right here before us. It's such a missed opportunity. I don't know. I think that there should have been more good revows, you know? More Godvons. It's such a shame. Such a shame. Anyway. Just need to plug my phone in. And good to go. Okay. Let's do this, friends. Put this in a more convenient location. Okay. Special thanks to Raven, my Gothic's blood sister. WTF, you're supposed to read this. Hey, Raven, do you know where my sweater... Chapter 13. Author's note. Raven, thanks for jelping me again. I'm sorry I talk your poster of Gerard, but that guy is such a fucking sex bomb. Prep stop flaming. Sorry, it's actually prep stop flaming. Vampire and I ran up the stairs looking for Dumbledore. We were so scared. Dumbledore! Dumbledore! We both yelled. Dumbledore came there. What is it you want now, you despicable snobs? He asked angrily. And he would. At this point, he's going to see them as despicable snobs. They had sex in the Forbidden Forest. They've been so irreverent toward him. They've been so uncaring, unempathetic. These are two characters who do not care about the way that their actions are impacting other people. He's going to see them as despicable snobs. This is in character. He's always been someone who is forthcoming. He's very, very forth with his words. He was somebody who was always direct. He will show the vitriol on his face toward these people. What is it you want now, you despicable snobs? He asked angrily. Voldemort has Draco, we shouted at the same time. It is impressive that at the same time, but this is showing the emotional depth of our two characters here, the depth of their connection. How tight their bond is, that at the same time, they can both mispronounce Voldemort's name. That is a feat. Can you imagine if you are in a relationship with someone and you have been together and you've been through everything together and you feel so deeply connected to them that when they speak, you speak the exact same words, exactly equally mispronounced, equally wrong. Voldemort has Draco, we shouted at the same time. He laughed in an evil voice. No, don't. We need to save Draco, we begged. No, he said meanly. I don't give a darn what Voldemort does to Draco. Not after how much he misbehaved in school, especially with you, Ebony, he said while he frowned, looking at me. Besides, I never liked him that much anyway. Then he walked away. Vampire started crying. My Draco, he moaned. Author's note. Don't you think gay guys are like so hot? It's okay, I tried to tell him, but that didn't stop him. He started to cry tears of blood. Then he had a brainstorm. I had an idea, he exclaimed. What? I asked him. You'll see, he said. He took out his wand and did a spell. Then, suddenly we were in Voldemort's lair. We ran in with our wands out just as we heard a croon voice say, "Allah Kedavra." It was Voldemort! What? Didn't see that one coming. The suspense, the number of ellipses has a payoff. We use this many ellipses, and the pause that we get until the reveal, it just boom, it comes from inside us. Where did this come from? Where did that word come from? Voldemort. Whoa, I didn't see it around the corner there. Voldemort. What? Now, this is subtle. It's going to require just a little bit of, worldly knowledge to know this. But it's possible here Voldemort is either Muslim or Islamophobic. It's difficult to tell. He's either in this spell where he says Allah Kedavra, he's either trying to cast a spell that kills God or kills with the wrath of God. And it's not entirely sure if this is sort of like the praiseworthy Allah Kedavra or the condemnatory Allah Kedavra. Could be either. We're going to need to read on a little bit more to understand whether or not this is sort of Islamophobic or is this, maybe he is Muslim. This could be a new take on the Voldemort character. Could also explain perhaps, I don't know, maybe certain features of his dress. It's possible. I wouldn't rule anything out in this version. That's what I'm saying. Chapter 14. Fuck off, preps, okay? Raven, thanks for helping again. I'm sorry I couldn't update, but I was depressed. And I had to go to the hospital because I slipped my wrist. P.S. I'm not updating till you give me 10 God values. It is an unfortunate reality, of course. No part of this is humorous. No part of this is humorous. Just to be clear, 100% seriousness. No part of that is humorous. The 10 God values is somewhat humorous, but again, I mean, she already should have had them. There is no reason we wouldn't have had 10 God values by this point. Warning. Some of this chapter is extremely scray. Violard excretion advised. Everyone, exercise your violer excretion before you approach this. You don't want to excrete something you were not prepared to excrete because this chapter was too scray for you to handle. It's a fair warning. We warned you. Trigger warnings, all of that ahead of time. So at this point, if you're still here, if it's too scray for you, I don't know what to tell you. Tried to warn you. We ran to where Voldemort was. It turned out that Voldemort wasn't there. Instead, what a turnaround that is. What a 180 we just got there. We ran to where he was, but it turned out he wasn't there. I've never seen a reader's expectations be so directly, so flagrantly just thrown off. We ran to where he wasn't there. What? Where is he? That's the first question you get, right? You're like, where is he? Where is Voldemort? Not there. Instead, the fat guy who killed Cedric was. Draco was there crying tears of blood. Snaketail was torturing him. Vampire and I ran in front of Snaketail. "Rid my sight, you despicable preps," he shouted, as we started shooting him with the gun. Then suddenly he looked at me, and he fell down with a lovey-dovey look in his eyes. "Ebony, I love you. Will you have sex with me?" he said. In this, he is 16 years old, so he's not a pedophile, okay? Huh? I asked. "Enoby, I love you. Will you have sex with me?" asked Snaketail. I started laughing crudely. "What the fuck? You torture my BF, and then you expect me to fuck you? God, you are so fucked up, you fucking bastard," I said angrily. Then I stabbed him in the heart. Blood poured out of it like a fountain. "No!" he screamed. He started screaming and running around. Then he fell down and died. I burst into tears sadly. Even though our character killed this person, she feels emotion over his passing. Her empathy is large. Her empathy is great, and it's deep. "Snaketail, what art thou doing?" called Voldemort. Then he started coming. We could hear his high heels clacking to us, so we got on our broomsticks and we flew to Hogwarts. We went to my room. Vampire went away. There, I started crying. "What's wrong, honey?" asked Draco, taking off his clothes so he could screw. He had a sex pack. Get it? 'Cause he's so sexa. And a really huge you-know-what and everything. "It's so unfair," I yielded. "Why can't I just be ugly or plain like all the other girls and preps here except for Bloody Mary because she's not ugly or anything?" She's not. She's Hermione, and Hermione was very attractive in the movies. We all know this. It's based off the Hermione from the movies. So naturally, this is, we're making that connection. "Why would you want to be ugly? I don't like the preps anyway. They're such fucking sluts," answered Draco. "Yeah, but everyone is in love with me. Like Snape and Lupin took a video of me naked. Hagrid says he's in love with me. Vampire likes me. And now even Snaketail is in love with me. I just want to be with you, okay, Draco? Why couldn't Satan have made me less beautiful?" I shouted angrily. And don't worry, Enoby isn't a snob or anything, but a lot of people have told her she's pretty. "I'm good at too many things. Why can't I just be normal? It's a fucking curse," I shouted, and then I ran away. Chapter 15. Now what's going to happen to Enoby here? Ebony. Enoby, whatever. She is having a bit of an identity crisis. She doesn't know how her name is spelled. That happens to me frequently. Where does the H go? R-H-E-A? R-E-A-H? R-E-H-A? I don't know. I don't know how to spell my name sometimes. It's frustrating. I sit there and I'm like, am I Reha? Am I Rhea? Maybe I'm Rhea. It could be anything. It could be anything. And we see that same crisis of identity happening with our character Ebony. Ebony. It's terrifying to be 17, going through this kind of identity crisis, not knowing how your name is spelled, not knowing who you're in love with. Are you in love with Vampire? Are you in love with Draco? Is Draco in love with Vampire? Why does he have the tattoo? And that was not very adequately resolved. It's not known how clean their breakup was before this. Are they still in love? They say they aren't. They broke up, but they could be. And when do you know? We have a lot of interpersonal problems going on here. They're deep, they're multifaceted. They're difficult to parse. It's hard to understand. But at no point is it difficult to understand because it's poorly written. This is perfectly delivered. Ebony! Ebony! Shouted Draco sadly. No! Please come back! But I was too mad. Whatever. Now you can go and have sex with vampire, I shouted. I stormed into my room and closed my black door with my blood-red key. It had a picture of Marilyn Manson on it. She customized her key. This shows a certain level of detail that our character is paying attention to the various items in our world. Of course, we all want to be able to customize our keys, but not all of us are wizards. But she can do it. She's got magic. She can put a picture of Marilyn Manson on a key. Keys are very, very small, so putting a picture on a key, very impressive feat. She's capable of doing it, and that's the level of care she has for herself. Despite the fact that she slits her wrist, she knows that it's important to her to have personalized items as small as keys that she's able to look at and be able to personally reflect on. This is an item that reflects some essence of me. This has Marilyn Manson on it. I love Marilyn Manson. Now, we might ask, wouldn't it make more sense for Bloody Mary to have this key? Doesn't Bloody Mary have a deeper love for Marilyn Manson, the main character? Wouldn't it make more sense if the main character had perhaps a band member of Good Charlotte on it? Or maybe she had a band member of My Chemical Romance? Wouldn't those make more sense? The lead singer of My Chemical Romance on this key, or the lead singer of Good Charlotte? And you might think that, but do not forget the level of depth she has with her relationship with Bloody Mary. This is something they relate over, their mutual love for Marilyn Manson. He looked so sexy in a way that reminded me of Draco and the vampire, Marilyn Manson, naturally. Marilyn Manson is a sexy mother duck. I started to cry and weep from looking at the key with Marilyn Manson on it. It reminds her of both of those characters. She's got an intense emotional connection going on here. Of course she's going to be crying and weeping. This is all in character. I took a razor and started to slit my wrists. I drank the blood, all depressed. So long as you keep it in the system, you're good. Blood stays in the system. She's immortal. Less of a character threat that way. Doesn't work on normal humans, don't try it at home. Then I looked at my black GC watch and noticed it was time to go to biology class. Not clear what time of day this is. Admittedly, I thought we were at night by now. A lot has happened this day. This has been a very busy day for her, but she's a dedicated student. She's still going to her classes. Even though she's depressed, she slits her wrists. Now, if you're not aware, there are veins in the wrists. Is there an artery there? I don't think there's an artery there, but I could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure that when you cut the wrist, there's a lot of blood in the wrists. There's a whole lot of blood. So maybe she heals quickly. This is something that, we could ask. Maybe she's healing quickly, and that is what allows for her to be able to go to biology class right after slitting her wrist. But she also drank all the blood in her body, presumably. So long as you take it into your stomach, right, it can go through the stomach lining and get back into the bloodstream. Makes sense. That's how a lot of drugs are consumed, I guess. I put on a short, ripped black gothic dress that said Anarchy on the front in blood-red letters and was all ripped, and a spiky belt. Under that, I put on ripped black fishnets and boots that said Joel all over them with blood-red letters. I put my ebony black hair out. Anyway, I went downstairs feeling all sad and depressed as usual. I did some advanced biology work. I was turning a bloody pentagram into a black guitar. Suddenly, the guitar turned to Draco. "Ellaby, I love you," he shouted, sadly. "I do not care what those fucker preps and posers think. You're the most beautiful girl in the world. Before I met you, I used to want to commit suicide all the time. Now, I just want to fucking be with you. I fucking love you." Now, I just remembered. Draco committed suicide before this. But he didn't really commit suicide, right? Because he was actually kidnapped by Voldemort. That's why, right after it was found out that he committed suicide, Harry had that vision. Oh, my scar, it hurts. It's turning back into the shape of a lightning bolt over a pentagram from what Diabolo had put. But then I put foundation on it to cover the shape of the pentagram because it's weird to have a pentagram on your forehead, naturally. So I changed the shape, but then it turns back into a lightning bolt. And the lightning bolt shows again through the foundation, of course. And that's less weird. Nonetheless, Draco is back to life. This is going to be a confusing emotional time for our main character. She thought he was dead. She rescues him from Voldemort. Thought he could have died again after Voldemort took him. She still hasn't killed Harry. She's got to kill Harry, or else Voldemort is going to come back and kill Draco. A lot of this complexity still under the surface here. We can't forget any of it. All of it will be addressed, surely. Although they could be red herrings, keeping us on our toes. We don't know. Which way is the story going? I'm going to pull something over real quick. Just bump myself into the mic. Smooth. Yeah, a lot of complexity going on here. But this is, I mean, this is what we would come to expect of a story. A story this renowned. Ennaby, I love you. Oh, wait, let's see. We read that one. Sorry. We're in the middle of this paragraph. That's why I threw it off. Then, he started to sing The Chronicles of Life and Death. We considered it our song now because we fell in love when Joel was singing it, right in front of the entire class. His singing voice was so amazing and gothic and sexy, like a cross between Gerard, Joel, Chester, Pierre, and Marilyn Manson. Don't you think those guys are so hot? If you do not know who they are, get the fuck out of here. Her. OMFG, I said after he was finished. Some fucking prep stared at us, but I just stuck up my middle fingers that were covered in black nail polish and were entwined with Draco's now, at them. I love you, I said. And then we started to kiss, just like Hilary Duff. I fucking hate that bitch. And CMM in a Cinderella story. I don't know who CMM is. CMM in a Cinderella story? Who is that? CMM is... Nope, don't know who that is. Michelle, whatever. It's important. Not important, but it's, you know, it's a connection. It's a connection we can make. Then we went away holding hands. Lupin shouted at us, but he stopped because everyone was clapping by how sexy we looked together. Then I saw a poster saying that MCR would have a concert in Hogsmeade right then. We looked at each other all shocked, and we went together. Chapter 16. You know what? Shut up, okay? Prove to me you're not preps. Raven, you suck, you fucking bitch. Give me back my fucking sweet. You're supposed to read this. Raven, what the fuck, you bitch? You're supposed to do this. BTW, thanks to Brittany5655 for teaching me Japanese. So we've got a little bit behind the scenes, some sort of fallout between Raven and our main author / character. Maybe it's an act. Maybe it's a friend. She's wearing a mask for all of us. We got this fallout between Raven and Bloody Tier 666 and Tara, I guess. Tara Gillespie, if that's actually who wrote this. Dramatic, sad. One of the characters was based off of her. How's she going to treat that character now? This is going to have a real world impact. A real physical, felt impact on the story. How's it get resolved? We'll see. We ran happily to Hogsmeade. There we saw the stage where GC had played. We ran in happily. MCR were there playing Helena. I was so fucking happy. Gerard looked even sexier than he did in the pictures. Even Draco thought so. I could totally see him getting an erection, but it didn't matter because I knew that we were the only true ones for each other. I was wearing a black leather mini dress and black leather platinum boots with red repped fishnets. Draco was wearing a black baggy MCR t-shirt and black baggy pants. Anyway, we started moshing to Helena. We Frenched. We ran up to the front of the band to stage dive. Suddenly, Gerard pulled off his mask. So did the others. We gasped. It wasn't them at all. It was... Voldemort and the Death Eaters. Sorry, the Death Dealers. The Death Dealers. It's a new band, actually. I keep doing that. I keep speaking in my own voice, but British. Voldemort and the Death Dealers. It's a band, right? WTF, Draco? I'm not going to a concert with you, I shouted angrily. Not after what happened to me last time, even if it's MCR, and you know how much I licked them. What? 'Cause we... You know, he gadgeted uncomfortably, 'cause guys don't like to talk about you-know-what. Nobody likes to talk about you-know-what. No guy likes to talk about you-know-what, and you-know-what, and that's why I'm saying you-know-what, because I don't even want to approach talking about you-know-what. I'm a guy. That would be very uncomfortable for me. I'm feeling uncomfortable thinking about talking about you-know-what, and you-know-what, and you-know-why that would make me uncomfortable. So we're not even going to talk about it. Yeah, 'cause we, you know, I yielded in an angry voice. We won't do that again, Draco promised. This time, we're going with an escort. OMFG, WTF, are you giving into the mainstream? I asked. So I guess you're a prep or a Christina or what now? No, he muttered loudly. You can mutter in various volumes. That's, I mean, you can, no, right? You can just, muttering is about the quality of the words coming out of your mouth. So you can just keep muffling that and then just broadcast it louder. So you go, maybe. That's loud muttering. No, he muttered loudly. Are you becoming a prep or what? I shouted angrily. Anyway, I'm not. Please come with me. He fell down to his knees and started singing The World is Black by GC to me. I was flattened, because that's not even a single. He had memorized the lyrics just for me. Okay, then I guess I'll have to, I said, and then we Frenched for a while, and I went up to my room. But Bloody Mary was standing there. Hajime mashite, girl, she said happily. She speaks Japanese, so... Oh, sorry, actually this is the character. She speaks Japanese, so do I. That means, how do you do in Japanese? BTW Willow, that fucking poser, got expelled. She failed all her classes, and she skipped math. Author's note. Raven, you fucking suck. Fuck you. Serves that fucking bitch right, I laughed angrily. Well, anyway, we were feeling all depressed. We watched some gothic movies like Das Nightmare Before Xmas. Maybe Willow will die too, I said. Kawaii. But Bloody Mary shook her head energetically, lethargically. Oh yeah, I have a confession after she got expelled. I murdered her and then Lupin did it with her because he's a necrophilic. You don't want to say a word like necrophiliac in a story. That can be very off-putting to a reader. A way you can sort of slip that in a little bit more, passively, you just say necrophilic and sort of just let the reader intone what they will. Kawaii, I commented happily. We talked to each other in silence for the rest of the movie. Oh hey, BTW, I'm going to a concert with Draco tonight in Hogsmeade with MCR, I said. I need to wear like the hot set outfit ever. But Bloody Mary nodded energetically. OMFG, let's go shopping. In Hot Topic, right? Because it's her favorite store. Staying in character, keeping it 100. I asked, already getting out my special Hot Topic loyalty card. No. My head snaped up. What? My head spewing. I could not believe it. But Bloody Mary, are you a prep? No, she laughed. I found some cool gothic stores near Hogwarts, that's all. Who told you about them? I asked, sure it would be Draco or Diabolo or Vampire. Don't even say that name to me. Or me. Dumbledore, she said. Let me just call her Brahms. OMFFG Dumbledore? I asked, quietly. In all caps. All caps is also a way of communicating whether or not a character is whispering. You can whisper in all caps. It's about the urgency. Yeah, I saw the map for Hogsmeade on his desk, she told me. Come on, let's go. We were going in a few punk goth stores, specially for the concerts in Hogsmeade. The salesperson was OMG hotter than Gerard, except not, because that's impossible, and he gave me a few dresses. We only have these for the real goths. The real goths? Me and Bloody Mary asked. Yeah, you wouldn't believe how many posers there are in this town, man. Yesterday Lupin and Snap tried to buy a gothic camera pouch. He shook his head. I didn't even know they had a camera. Oh my Satan, you... Oh, sorry. OMFG, no, they're gonna spy on me again, I cried, running out of the changing room wearing a long black dress with lots of red tulle coming out of it and very low cut with a huge slit. Oh my Satan, you have to buy that outfit, the salesperson said. Yeah, it looks totally hot, said Bloody Mary. You know what? Oh, sorry, this is him. His characters have very similar dialogue lines, so it's not always immediately obvious, but that's okay. They're in character, it's just a different way that these goths have of speaking to each other. Got to get used to it. You know what? I am going to give it to you free, because you look really hot in that outfit. Hey, are you going to be at the concert tonight? He asked. Yeah, I am actually. I looked back at him. Hey, BTW, my name's Ebony Darkness Dementia Tara Way. What's yours? Tom Ridd, he said, and ran a hand through his black-dyed hair. Maybe I'll see you there tonight. Yeah, I don't think so, because I'm going there with my BF Draco, you sick perv, I yelled angrily, but before he could beg me to go with him, Hagrid flew in on his black broom looking worried. OMFG, Ebony, you need to get back into the castle now. each layer of complexity added to this story, we get a new name for this character. And perhaps it says something deeper about the way that she's perceiving these events. It's almost like they're happening to different people each time. Each time a new character interacts with her in a way that she's not expecting. Each time there's a new conflict that she has to get used to. She adopts a new name for herself. Ebony, Eneby. Ebony, Darkness, Dementia, Raven Way changes to Ebony, Darkness, Dementia, Terra Way, because of course the author no longer wants to associate the main character with Raven, her best friend, who she had a falling out with, of course, is no longer her best friend. Raven is a bitch now. That's according to the author. That's canon. And now it's Ebony, Darkness, Dementia, Terra Way. And then it turns out to be Ebony, Ebony, Darkness, Dementia, Terra Way. I said stop flumming distrio. If you're a prep, then do not read it. You can tell whether you're a prep or not by my quiz on It's My homepage. If you're not, then you rock. If you are, then fuck off. Mrs. Willow isn't really a prep. Raven, please do this. I'll promise to give you back your poster. Tom Riddle gave us some clothes and stuff for free. He said he would help us with makeup if he wanted, because he was really into fashion stuff. He's bisexual. Now, those are separate facts, just to be clear. It's, even though this is a parenthetical aside, parenthetical asides, where we insert more information into a parenthesis, it does not have to be the case that that information is separate solely from the information that was just presented, or it doesn't have to be the case that that information is connected, as though somehow it's, it relates. It can be entirely separate, and indeed, it's in its own sentence. We have two periods that sort of sandwich these parentheses. It's just a parenthetical aside because the author is delivering us information that essentially it may not otherwise be immediately noticeable to us. It's something that's important for us to know, but it's something that perhaps there really just is no better way to deliver this in the narrative. That happens sometimes. Parentheses aren't the most elegant way to deliver it, but I'd say with the level of art that we've been dealing with in this story, it's probably one of the best ways. Probably the best way that it could have been delivered. And it shows a level of technical expertise in story writing that just... I don't think... I don't know. I think that it is technically expert. Hagrid kept shooting at us to come back to Hogwarts. WTF, Hagrid, I shouted angrily. Fuck off, you jucking bastard. Well, anyway, Willow came. Hagrid went away angrily. Hey, bitch, you look kawaii, she said. Yeah, but not as kawaii as you, I answered sadly, because Willow's really pretty and everything. She was wearing a short black mini corset thingy with blood red lace on it, and a black blood red miniskirt, leather fishnets, and black pointy boots. It showed off how pale she was. She had a really nice body with big bobs and everything. She was thin enough to be anorexic. So, are you going to the concert with Draco? She asked. Yeah, I said happily. I'm going with Diabolo, she answered happily. Well, anyway, Draco and Diabolo came. They were both looking extremely hot and sexy, and you could tell they thought we were hot too. Diabolo was wearing a black t-shirt that said 666 on it. He was wearing tons of makeup, just like Marilyn Manson. Draco is wearing black leather pants, a gothic black GC t-shirt, and black Vans, because he got from the Warped Tower. But Lottie Mott is going to the concert with Dracula. Dracula used to be called Naval, but it turned out that he was kidnapped at birth, and his real family were vampires. They died in a car crash. Naval converted to Satanism, and he went goth. He was in Slytherin now. He was wearing a black warped t-shirt, black jeans and shoes, and black hair with red streaks in it. We call him Dracula now. Well, anyway, we all went to Draco's black messy Benz. Get it? Because we're thick. That his dad, Lucian, gave him. We did pot, coke, and crack. Now, this... Before, she said we did drugs. We smoked a lot of drugs in the car. You might think, well, hang on a minute. Didn't you say before that if you say we smoked a lot of drugs, that's like signaling to the druggy crowd? That's like saying you know how to do drugs. That's like saying you know the right terms for drug use. I did say that before. The more specific you get, the less realistic it sounds, because drug users don't say which specific drugs they're doing. We're further in the story now. It's clear that that was sort of like a world-building effort, a way for us to sort of ease into the world of drug use, but now she's going hardcore. Now we are getting the specific drugs they're doing, because at this point, it's more about showing us the effects these drugs will have on them. In the rest of this chapter, what we should be looking out for is the effects that these drugs are having on these characters' actions. I feel like we can say with a certain guarantee, it'll be obvious. Oh boy. Draco and I made out. We made fun of those stupid fucking preps. We soon got there. I gasped. Gerard was the sexiest guy ever. He looked even sexier than he did in pics. He had long, raven black hair and piercing blue eyes. He was really skinny, and he had an amazing ethnic voice. We moshed to Helena and some other songs. Suddenly, Gerard pulled off his mask. So did the other members. I gasped. It wasn't Gerard at all. It was an ugly, preppy man with no nose and red eyes. Everyone ran away but me and Draco. Draco and I came. It was Voldemort and the Death Dealers. We didn't see it coming the first time. We didn't see it coming the second time. This band twice now has been replaced. They peel their masks off and it turns out to be Voldemort and the Death Dealers. And honestly, who could have known? Who could have known that Voldemort and the Death Dealers would have been here in this concert? This is an innocent Good Charlotte / whatever band concert this is. We were not expecting the Death Dealers. Suddenly we get them. It's off-putting. It's jarring. We should be fearful. You moronic idiots, he shouted angstily. Enemy, I told you to kill vampire. Thou have failed. And now I shall kill thou and Draco. No, please, we begged sadly, but he took out his knife. Voldemort could kill with Avada Kedavra or Alla Kedavra. He could kill with any of the various cadavras that we've heard in this story so far. Abracadabra, Alla Kedavra. But he's choosing a knife. It's going to be slower, more painful. It's going to be more emotionally visceral for our characters. It's going to get more of a reaction. That's important. Suddenly, a gothic old man flew in on his broomstick. He had long black hair. He had long black hair and a long black bread. He was wearing a black robe that said Avril Lavigne on the back. He shotted a spell and Voldemort ran away. It was... You're waiting for it. You're waiting for it. Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Dumbledore! It's Dumbledore. It's Dumbledore. Dumbledore came in and saved the day. Good plot setup. Good plot setup. We had some tension between them and Dumbledore earlier. And it was said that Dumbledore was not going to come in and save Draco. But now he's coming in. He's saving Ebony, and Draco. Ebony. He's saving them and Draco. And this isn't something that we thought he was willing to do. This is character development from Dumbledore. Dumbledore at first said that he thought they were misfits or whatever. He insulted them. He thought they were degenerates. He didn't want to save them because he was a prep. He was a bit of a prep at the time. But now he's evolving. He's entering into the world of non-preppiness. He's entering into the gothic culture. He is wearing an Avril Lavigne t-shirt, flying in on a broomstick, and he's going to save them. He's going to save these two gothic, helpless, hapless protagonists. He's going to save them because he's had a revelation that is who he is. He has to take care of his students. I said stop flamming. If you do, then you are a fucking prep. Thanks to Raven for the help and stuff. You rock. And you're not a prep. Thanks for my suitor. P.S. The odor Essen Dumbledore swore is cause he trying to be gothic, so der. We knew that. We knew that he was trying to be gothic. So this is gothic, sorry. We knew that he was trying to be gothic. This is, this is good development. Didn't need to be said. But she said it anyway in the author's note. Author's note is the appropriate place to put it. It's directly to the readers. And it becomes like a part of the work. It becomes embedded in the work. I woke up the next day in my coffin. I walked out of it and put on some black eyeliner, black eyeshadow, blood-bed lipstick, and a black, really low-cut leather dress that was all ripped in stripes so you could see my belly. I was wearing a skull belly ring with black and red diamonds inside it. The attention to her fashion, what she's wearing, this is useful information for us because it gives us insight into the values of this character. She cares about her belly button piercings and her 6 ear piercings and her... these are all personal values for her. There's no reason to shame that. And it makes for good writing. The night before Draco and I went back to the skull, get it? Skull, because I'm gothic and I like death. Dumbledore chased Voldemort away. We flew there on our brooms. Mine was black and the broom stuff was blood red. There was lace all over it. Draco had a black MCR boom. We went back to our rooms and we had you-know-what to a Linkin Park song. Not gonna lie, Linkin Park is a very unique choice to have you-know-what to. It's kind of difficult, I would imagine. They're usually pretty fast and intense. But that's choice. That's choice. It's character development, I guess. No. It's visualization. That's what it is. We get a very sense of the raw passion they're having while they do that. While they're doing you-know-what. While they're having you-know-what. There's a lot of emotional energy in this. Just like there is in a Linkin Park song. I've become so numb. But instead, it's not, I can't feel you there. It's, I can feel you there. I can feel you there and everywhere. All over my body. Well, anyway, I went down to the Great Hall where things are grated. There, all the walls were painted black and the tables were black too, but you could see that there was a pink pant underneath the black pant, and there were posters of poser bands everywhere like Ashley Simpson and the Backstreet Boys. WTF, I shouted, going to sit next to Bloody Mary and Willow. But Bloody Mary was wearing a black leather mini with a good Shraloot t-shirt, black fishnets, and black pointy boots. Willow was wearing a long gothic black dress with blood-red writing that was all lacy and came up to your thighs, and black boots and fishnets. Vampire, Dracula, and Draco came. We started to talk about who was sexier, Mikey or Gerard Way or Billy Joe Armstrong. The boys joined in because they were bi. Those guys are so fucking hot, Naval was saying, as suddenly a gothic old man with a black beard and everything came. He was the same one who had chased away Voldemort yesterday. He had normal tan skin, but he was wearing white foundation, and he had dyed his hair black. He dyed his rabbit black, just to be clear. You might have been confused because I'm reading it to you, that he dyed his hair black, like the hair on his head. He did not dye his hair black, he dyed his hair black. H-A-R-E. He dyed his rabbit black. That's important, because that means that this man has a rabbit. Is that rabbit going to come up again? Maybe, maybe not. What is important, though, is that this is the kind of person who owns a rabbit. We all know what kind of person that is. Fluffy. About 17 ... I'm not gonna read all of them this time. I normally read every single one of the ellipses. I pause for at least 3 seconds. Dumbledore! We all gasped. WTF! I shouted angrily. I thought he was just wearing that to scare Voldemort. Hello, everyone, he said happily. As you can see, I gave the room a makeover. What do you think about it? Everyone from the poser table in Gryffindor started to cheer. Well, we Goths just looked at each other, all disgusted, and shook our heads. We couldn't believe what a poser he was. BTW, you can call me Albert. He called as we left to our classes. What a fucking poser, Draco shouted angrily as we to transformation. We were holding hands. Vampire looked really jealous. I could see him crying blood in a gothic way. Get it? Way like Gerard. But I didn't say anything. I bet he's having a midlife crisis, Willow shouted. Now, it hasn't been obvious to us up to this point, but vampire is a vampire. Vampire, Vampire Potter, Vampire Harry Potter, Harry Potter, vampire, that vampire, same vampire. Vampire is a vampire. He is, ergo, immortal. Why couldn't he be middle-aged? Think about it. Use your head. He's middle-aged. That's why he's going through a midlife crisis. Went under your nose. You didn't think about it. You didn't think about it because, of course, you weren't open to the mind. You weren't open to the idea. Your mind was not open to the idea that potentially we were dealing with a middle-aged vampire who had come back to school as a non-traditional student at Hogwarts, a non-traditional magical student at Hogwarts, trying to learn magic, despite the fact that he's in his 40s. He's getting up there. He's, and now he's having this midlife crisis. He wants to learn maybe a different kind of magic than what he's used to. Or maybe he's a vampire, and so he never thought he needed magic. He always had his teeth, and he could jump, and he could sparkle in the sunlight. But now he realizes, I need magic because Voldemort is out to get me. And, most importantly, I really want to be able to use magic to permanently cover up the pentagram / lightning bolt that I'm constantly having to hide with foundation on my forehead. It's an unfortunate reality that he faces. Sure, it's the cause of much anxiety for him. Cry no more, vampire. Cry your blood no more. Chapter 19. I'm not okay, I promise. Pull stop flaming the story. If you do, you're a fucking prep and you're jealous, okay? From knock an I'm going to delt your men reviaus. BTW evanid a poor blood so der. Thanks to Raven form da help. Now, if you are not following the words on the screen, and I do not blame you, reading is boring, you might be inclined to think that it is because I am drunk that I am reading it this way. I promise you I am reading it exactly as the author intended. I will stick by the words of that promise. All day we sat angrily thinking about Dumbledore. We were so fucking pissed off. Well, I had one thing to look forward to, the MCR concert. It had been postponed, so we could all go. I will say what I do appreciate about the story is that the further that I go, it does seem the more and more likely that it's my errors that are causing this, even though it definitely isn't. It really is made, you're supposed to start drinking at the beginning. It seems very clear to me. You're supposed to start the drinking at the beginning, and as you go, it's supposed to be like in tune with the level of consciousness that you're experiencing. That is what makes it good art, people. Anyway, I went to the common room, sadly, to cut classes. Draco was being all secretive. I asked what it was, and he got all mad at me and started crying all hot and angsty. And not unsensitive by guys. Oh, sorry, this is an author's note. Aren't sensitive by guys so hot? No one fucking understands me, he shouted angrily as his black hair, the rabbit, to be clear, as his black hair went in his big blue eyes like Billy Joel and Boulevard of Balkan Dreams. He was wearing black baggy pants, a black MCR t-shirt, and a black dye. Get it? Instead of tie, 'cause I'm gothic. I was wearing a black leather low-cut top with chains all over it, a black leather mini, black high-held boots, and a cross belly thing. My hair was all up in a messy, really high bun like Amy Lee in Gong Under. Email me if you want to see the pic. Accuse me? What about me? I growled. Boy, but, he grunted. You fucking bastard, I moaned. No, wait, it's not what it fucking looks like, he shouted. But it was too late. I knew what I heard. I ran to the bathroom angrily. Cring. Draco banged on the door. I whipped and wept as my bloody eyeliner streamed down my cheeks and made cool tears down my feces, like Benji in the video for girls and boys. Raven, that is so our video. I took out a cigarette and started to smoke pot. Suddenly, Hagrid came. He had appurated. You gave me a fucking shock, I shouted angrily, dropping my pot. WTF do you think you're doing in the girl's room? Only it wasn't just Hagrid. Someone else was with him too. For a second, I wanted it to be Tom Ridd or maybe Draco, but it was Dumbledore. Hey, I need to ask you a question, he said, pulling out his black wannabe gothic purse. What are you wearing to the concert? You know who MCR are? I gasped. No, I just saw there was a concert that a lot of goths and punks were going to, he said. Anyway, Draco has a surprise for you. Chapter 20. I said, Dnati Ker what you think. Stop flaming, okay? Perhaps thanks to Raven for the help. One. Oh yeah, BTW, it'll be on vacation in Transylvania for the next 3 days. So do not expect updates. All day I wondered what the surprise was. Meanwhile, I put on a black leather mini, a black corset with purple lace stuff all over it, a black gothic compact boots. MCR were going to do the concert again since Volksamort had taken over the last one. I slit my wrists while I moshed to MCR in my bedroom all night, feeling excited. Suddenly someone knocked on the door while I was trying on some black clothes and moshing to fang you for the venom. I got all mad and turned it off, but sacredly I hopped inside that it was Draco so we could do it again. What the fucking hell are you doing? I shouted angrily. It was Lupin! Are you gonna come... I don't know how I feel about some of these sentences. I'm just like... Are you gonna come rape me or what? I yelled. I was allowed to say that because Dumbledore had told us all to be careful around them and snap since he was a pedo. Ergo, there we go. So that's how we can feel comfortable reading it because Dumbledore had allowed it. We're being given permission by the characters within the story to interpret it in this way. Don't worry about it, folks. We can, there's a good faith way, carry on, good interpretation of the story. No, actually, get it, hell? Can I please borrow some condoms? He growled angrily. He's probably drunk. That's why he's talking this way. Yeah, so you can fuck your six... Oh my god. This story feels so not okay. Jesus, okay. We started it. Yeah, so you can fuck your 6-year-old girlfriend, huh? I shouted sarcastically. Fucker, he said, going away. Well, anyway, I put on some black eyeshadow, black eyeliner, and some black lipstick and white foundation. Then I went. Then I gasped. That was a rapid fire of ellipsis. Snake and Lupin were in the middle of the empty hall, doing it, and Dobby was watching. Oh my god, you ludicrous idiot! They both shouted angrily when they saw me. Dobby ran away crying. They got up though. Normally, I would have been turned on. I love seeing guys do it. But both of them were fucking preps. BTW, Snake is moved to Gryffindor now. WTF, is that why you want... Oh my god. Okay. Really trying to make it through this. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Somehow, drinking more makes me less okay with this. WTF, is that why you wanted condoms? I asked sadistically. See, I spelled that. Only you wouldn't give them to me, Lumpkin shouted angrily. Well, you should have told me, I replayed. You dimwit. Snake began to shoot angrily, and then I took out my black camera and took a pic of them. You could see that they were naked and everything. Well, excuse me, they both shouted angrily. What was that all about? It's like spit. That was gross. It was to blackmail you, I snarked. So now, next time you see me doing it with my boyfriend, you can't fucking rat me out, or I'll show this to Dumbledore. So fuck off, you bastards. I started to run. Surprisingly, that is the most accurately she has spelled Dumbledore from the original canon, is when she is replacing just the E with a K, so she can say Dumbledore. There's a hint of this that makes me wonder how intentional the story is. I'm getting the sense, I'm getting a very, very serious sense. Perhaps this is like legit good. Like perhaps this is a work of satire. I don't know, but I do think otherwise, even if it is not a work of satire, it is legit good. I stand by that. I stand by that assessment. 10 out of 10 quality on this, guys. They chased me, but I threw my wound at them and they tripped over it. Well, anyway, I went outside and there was Vampire looking extremely fucking hot. WTF, where'd Draco? I asked him. Oh, he's being a fucking bastard. He told me he wouldn't come, Vampire said, shaking his head. You want to come with me to the concert? Then he showed me his flying car. Not a euphemism. I gasped. It was a black car. He said his dog father, serious. Okay, that's gold. That's gold. This is fucking gold. His dog father, Sirius Black. Let's be real. Sirius Black was his godfather. Sirius Black also transforms into a black wolf. His dog father. That's gold. That's gold. This wins. I'm sorry. It's done. It's done. This deserves to be held in the highest esteem of all literary quality. This, I will defend the literary integrity of this over Pride and Prejudice any day of the fucking week. 110% better, no matter what. Don't even question it at this point. I will debate you on this. Anyone wants to debate about the literary quality of this work over Pride and Prejudice? 110%. This should be a classic with 10 times the level of name recognition. Children should be reading... Oh, children probably shouldn't be reading this. High schoolers should be reading this in high school. Yeah, they're immature. But we can fix that by showing them writing like this. Encourage maturity by showing them the opposite. It was a black car. He said his dog father, Sirius Black, had given it to him. The license plate on the front said MCR 666 on it. That is leagues above Draco's. Draco's was just 666. This is My Chemical Romance 666. You can't beat that. You cannot beat that. That is not only her second favorite band, right? Besides, well, GC was her favorite band besides My Chemical Romance. And My Chemical Romance is her favorite band, ergo, and if we take the logic of that statement, My Chemical Romance is her favorite band. And it has 666. Vampire is a better match for her. She should end up with Vampire. The one on the back said Enemy on it. Oh, so his actual license plate. Oh, so there's two. There's the license plate on the front. There's the license plate on the back. The license plate on the front says her favorite band and 666. So it shows off he's a Satanist. And the one on the back says Enemy, which is the correct and or incorrect way of spelling her name. But either way, it's one of the ways of spelling her name. This is, objectively, a better match for her. This guy cares about her. This guy knows what her values are. I gasped, as she would. She gasped to a lot of things, and it makes sense this time that she would gasp to this. This is something she should be gasping to. And like all of the sex, I guess, probably wants to be gasp to that. That makes sense. Sure, why not? We flew to the concert hall. MCR were there, playing. Vampire and I began to make out, moshing to the music. I gasped, looking at the band. I almost had an orgasm. Gerard was so fucking hot. He began to sing Helena, and his saxav beautiful voice began to fill the hall. And then I heard some crying. I turned and saw Draco crying in a corner. Chapter 21. We only have 2 chapters left. 2 chapters left tonight. We're nearing the end, folks. Nearing the end of this beautiful, beautiful storytelling genius. Fuck you, okay? You fucking suck. It's not my fault if it's spelled wrong, okay? Cause that bitch Ravern, cause it fuck you preps. Whoops. Saws Raven, thanks for the help. BTW, Transylvania rocks Hrad. I even got to go to the castle where Dracola was flimed. Later, we all went in the skull. Draco was crying in the common room. Draco, are you okay? I asked in a gothic voice. No, I'm not, you fucking bitch, he shouted angrily. He stated to run out of the place in a suicidal way. I stated to cry, because I was afraid he would commit suicide. Again. It's okay, Ennaby, said Vampire comfortably. I'll make him feel better. You mean you'll go fuck him, won't you? I shouted angrily. Then I ran to get Draco. Vampire came too. Draco, please come, he began to cry. Tears of blood came down his pale face. I was so turned on, because I love sensitive bi guys. If you're a homophone, then fuck off. Don't be a homophone, guys. Don't be a homophone. It is so uncool. I hate homophonic people. You never want to be a person who sounds like another person. You don't want to be a person who sounds like a person whose name could be another word. Those people suck. I hate people like Pale. I have a friend named Pale. Don't be pale. Or a friend named Brick. But it's not spelled like brick, B-R-I-C-K. It's spelled B-R-Y-K. It's brick. It's a homophone. Don't be a homophone. And then we heard some footsteps. Vampire got out his black invincibility cloak. Invincibility coke. Coke. We both got under it. I guess it's like you're shaking coke all over you. Unless maybe it's like pouring coke. It could be pouring coke. We both got under it. We saw the janitor, Mr. Norris, there, shouting angrily with a flashlight in his hand. Who's there? He shouted angrily. We saw Filth come. He was under the invisibility cloak and started to meow loudly. Is anyone there? Yelled Mr. Norris. No, fuck you, preppy little poser son of a fucking bitch, Vampire said under his breath in a disgusted way. Excuse me, who said that? Yelled Mr. Norris. Then he heard Filch meow. Filth, is there anyone under the cloak? He asked. Filth nodded. The cat's very responsive. He's trained him for this. And then Vampire Frenched me. He did it just as Mr. Norris was taking off the cloak. What the? He yelled, but it was too late because now we were ruining away from him. And then we saw Draco crying and busted into tears and slitting his wrists outside of the school. Draco, I cried. Are you okay? I guess, though. Draco wept. We went back to our coffins, Frenching each other. Tonal consistency is important, folks. Draco and I decided to watch Lake Placid. See, isn't that the person? On the gothic red bed together. As I was about to put in the video, my eyes rolled up, and suddenly I had a vision of something that was happening now. There was a knock on the door, and Fug and a mystery of magic walked into the school. Final chapter here, folks. Final chapter. Chapter 22. STFU, perhaps stop flamming, okay? If you do not like it, fuck off. I know it's Mr. Nurse. It's Revan's fault, okay? You suck. No, just kidding, Revan. Fucking rock preps suck. It's actually like FiCtiOn. Let it slide. All day, everyone talked about the misery of... Magic is miserable, folks. That's why everybody in the story is slitting their wrists. All day, everyone talked about the misery of magic. Well, anyway, I woke up the next day. I was in my coffin, so I opened the door. I was wearing black, lacy leather pajamas. Then I gasped. I just want you to imagine leather, but lacy. I opened my crimson eyes. Willow was wearing a tight black leather top with pictures of bloody roses all over it. Under that, she wore a black poofy skirt with lace on it and black gothic boots that was attached to the top. Vampire was wearing a baggy Simple Plan t-shirt and baggy black pants and Vans. Draco was wearing a black MCR t-shirt and black jeans and a leather jacket. He looked just Lackey Gerard way and almost as fucking sexy. Vampire looked like Joel Madden. As he always did, right? He started in the beginning, he looked like Joel Madden. He looks like Joel Madden now. That didn't change. Your expectations should not have changed from chapter 1 to chapter now. This is the same story, surprisingly. But Bloody Mary was wearing a tight black poofy gothic dress that she had ripped so it showed off all her cleavage with a white apron that said bitch. But not bitch, not the insult. It's more like bish. And other swear words. Just all the swear words on this shirt. Bish. Fuck. Why not? And MCR lyrics on it, kind of like one dress I had seen Amy Lee wear once. Darkness, who is Jenny, was there too. She was weaving a ripped gothic black dress with ripped stuff all over it and a lace-up top thing and black pointy boots. So were Crab and Goyle. It turns out that Darkness, Diabolo, Crab, and Goyle's dad was a vampire. He committed suicide by slitting his wrist with a razor. He had raped them and stuff before, too. It's uncomfortable, but, I mean, we want our stories to be realistic. So, insert shitty people. They all got so depressed that they became gothic and converted to Stanism. To Stanism. Now, a lot of the story, we've been talking about Satanism. We've had a lot of Satanism through the story, but now we're being introduced to a new element, Stanism. And you thought Satan was bad. Believe me, Stan is worse. OMFG, I yielded as I jumped up. Why the fuck are you all here? Enemy, something is really fucked up, Draco said. Okay, but I need to put my fucking clothes on first, I shouted. Was she not wearing clothes? Has she been naked this whole scene? I was in my coffin, so I opened the door. She was wearing black lacy leather pajamas. Oh, okay, so she's not naked. She's just wearing her black lacy leather pajamas. She doesn't want people to look at her while she's wearing these because obviously they're too sexually attractive for people to be able to handle. Especially Draco, who would jump her bones any minute. We all know how sexually driven Draco Malfoy is. It's all right. We have to go now, and you look kawaii anyway. You're so fucking beautiful, Draco said, in a sexy voice. Should have been more like, you're so fucking beautiful. Oh, all right, I said, smiling. But you have to tell me why you're being all erective. I will, he said. I don't know what erective means, but I hope it conjured a very solid image for you. So I just put on some black eyeliner, black lipstick, and red eyeshadow and white foundation. Then I came. She just put on all of her makeup. All of it. She makes it sound like it was only... I just put on all of the makeup. We all went outside the Great Hall and looked in from a window. A fucking prep called Brittany from Gryffindor was standing next to us. She was wearing a pink mini and a Hilary Duff t-shirt, so we put up our middle fingers at her. Inside the Great Hall, we could see Dumbledore. Cornelia Fudge was there shouting at Dumbledore. Doris Rumbridge was there too. "This cannot be," she said angrily. "The school must be closed." "The Bark Lord is planning to kill the students," yelled Cornelia Fudge. "You are not fit to be the principal any longer," yelled Rumbridge. "You are too old, and your Alzheimer's is dangerous. You must retry, or Voldemort will kill your students." "Very well," Dumbledore said angrily. You know how you can say, you're getting in an argument with somebody, and you want to agree with them, but you're also pissed off. So you go, "Very well." You have to say it angrily. "Very well," Dumbledore said angrily. "But we cannot do this. We can't close the school. There's only one person who's capable of killing Voldemort, and she is in the school. And her name is..." "Enemy Darkness Dementia Raven Way." He's gonna say the full name. You don't just say Enemy. It's not. I mean, it's Enemy, but it could be Ebony. But it's regardless. We have a fifth way of pronouncing her name now. Ebony, Enemy, Ebendy, Enemy. Did we say Enemy already? Whatever. Maybe it's only 4 ways. We have a lot of ways of pronouncing this girl's name. He says the full name. He says the full name, gets the first one, just a little bit different. It's okay. Draco, Crabbe, Goyle, Darkness, Willow, Vampire, and Bloody Mary looked at each other. I gasped. So, we made it through, folks. Family, friends, loved ones. We made it through. 22 chapters. 22 chapters of My Immortal. And there it is. It's all there for you. It is honestly better than, and I feel qualified to say this, as someone who hasn't read Pride and Prejudice, it is better than Pride and Prejudice. Because the thing is, I wanted to read this. And Pride and Prejudice could never do that for me. So I think this should be remembered as a classic. I think it's important we teach children in schools, teenagers in schools, maybe not children. There's a little too much sex in this for it to be appropriate for children. But we should be teaching people in schools, this is how you make art. This is how you glorify the best parts of the world. Just impose your worldview on it. Take everything wrong about how you see the world and just throw it out for other people to see. Allow them to engage with it however they will. And they will make streams ridiculing it. And that's how we bring the world together. When all of us are able to look at a piece of art objectively, and we can agree about its quality. Obviously that this is a 10 out of 10. Amazing, high, golden quality. This belongs in that museum, in the Louvre. This belongs in the Louvre, exactly beside, just to the right of, like it's sitting on the right-hand side of the throne. The urinal. Because I believe they share similar qualities. Both of them will be remembered as things to piss on.